Welcome to, wait a second. Welcome to my fantasy football, but I'm playing Minecraft also show. The best fantasy football show that involves someone also playing Minecraft. I'm Nert Doobles, and I hope you'll bear with me as I kind of figure out if this is going to work. Despite appearances, this is not like a Minecraft show. Not exactly, not directly. The topic and central focus of this program it will not be Minecraft. Okay, wait a second, though. I still do have to be careful. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Oh, okay. The topic today will actually be fantasy football. Fantasy American football, specifically. If you're not familiar with what a fantasy sport is, it might not be what you're picturing in your head. It might be, I don't know. But, basically the 5-second version of it is in real sports, there are real sports and real sports happen. And fantasy sports are like an abstraction based on the real sport where you, as a player, as a fantasy football player, manager, you're like managing a team. Oh, whoa, what do you know? Hidden zombie flesh. You're managing a team of real world players in an imaginary league of teams, and how those players do in the real life sports games that happen in the real world determines the points that your imaginary fantasy sports team scores. And you play against other fantasy sports teams, and the higher score wins, just like regular sports, except it's like regular sports, but you don't physically get any exercise, and it's kind of for nerds. But anyway, if you want to learn more about fantasy sports and what they are, you can go do that on your own time. I will plug for a future thing that I plan on making. I plan to make a whole series of videos to introduce fantasy football to folks for the first time who've never experienced it. But I'm probably not going to be playing Minecraft at the time that I do that. But this show is about American NFL football, but fantasy football. This is intended primarily for folks who are playing fantasy football, at the time being, like in the moment. These are going to be weekly episodes with timely content. So it's for folks that are already playing fantasy football and presumably are relatively casual players, meaning you're not, playing for money. You're not, or at least not big money. You might be playing in some, what the hell? Some smaller, dangerous. You might be playing in some smaller, stakes, lower stakes kind of situation. Maybe, you and your friends play, or you have a league with your coworkers or something like that. In any case, hi. In any case, this is intended for the casual fan. Maybe you're not super invested in fantasy football, but you do want to learn to play better and succeed. And you also want to be entertained, presumably, if you're going to consume and ingest content about fantasy football. And also, you're totally comfortable with the fact that I am not actually an expert on fantasy football at all. I'm not just, a guy messing around. I would describe myself as a relatively successful and relatively savvy casual player. So like you, except I put more time into like learning about this stuff, basically. So I'm not going to do my own data analysis or anything like that. I'm not going to be like, doing advanced analytical sort of stuff. Wow. Okay. I'm just going to go with mostly my eyes and my ability to research and learn about what kinds of narratives are out there in the fantasy football ether, so to speak, that, you'll hear if you're listening to other podcasts or watching YouTube or reading about stuff. But, I'm just doing that too and doing it for you, kind of. But also, I'm going to use my eyes and my own brain and my own experience and my own past, success as a sort of savvy casual player to try to offer some unique insights and a different perspective than you might find somewhere else. Now, throughout this fantasy football show, as you may be able to tell, I'm also going to be playing Minecraft for reasons, I suppose. Well, really, the reasons are pretty basic. Just I want something that you can look at without having to just put my face on here, and something a little more visually engaging than just a podcast would be. And I just didn't want to really. It gives me something to do too, so I'm not just like feeling awkward, just kind of hanging out and talking. Even though I already do feel awkward just hanging out and talking. But the point is, this is the Minecraft is not important. If you would like to consume content where I'm playing Minecraft and talking about or singing about perhaps what I'm doing, I would direct you to. I would highly recommend you check out my YouTube channel, where I do things to that effect. That is to say, create artistical Minecraft-centric content that focuses directly on the experiences and the things going on in this game that I'm playing right now. But if you're looking to improve your fantasy football knowledge and skills while also being entertained by something that's a bit outside, off the beaten path, so to speak, that's strange, but hopefully also sort of delightful and sort of insightful, well, welcome in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Oh man, I really need to cut down some trees. Let's get into it. I'm not doing it here. I'm going to do it separately as a voiceover. I don't know. Hi, welcome to the next segment, which is eyeballs to the screen walls. Or maybe alternate name suggestion. You're going to have to tell me in the comments which one you prefer. I testest, try my bestest. In this segment, we're going to review as many games as I was actually able to place my eyeballs upon and mental attention upon for the past week of football. I'm just going to talk about what I observed and try to give you some of the broader stories and narratives that provide context for your decision making in fantasy football. Normally, I'd probably talk about 4 or maybe even 5 games in this segment each week. But since this is the first week, and since I'm not splitting off the Thursday night game, which I will want to do in the future, I'm going to talk about almost double that, or maybe double that many games, because I watched a bunch of games this week, including some of the replays of the games that I didn't get to see live when they were on TV. So this episode is going to be considerably longer than future episodes because I am going to go into depth about a number of additional games than I might on a given future week. But in any case, the games that I didn't get to watch with my eyeballs will be covered in the following segment, which you can skip ahead to if you don't see it on the list of games that I'll be discussing here. Those are the games where I only watched the highlights and maybe read about them. So in those cases, I'll be, providing some contextual information based on what I've read about and based on watching the highlights, and try to give you a sense, again, of the stories and narratives and what the broader, community of people saw. And so yeah, in this way, we're going to cover every game each week. Whoops, wrong button. We're going to cover every game each week. We're going to cover the games I watched first, followed by the games I didn't watch. And then we're going to end with a segment where we talk about the players that you might be interested in picking up for the waivers. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting out with the first game of the week, the first game of the NFL season, probably the most likely one that you out there watched because, it was like very, anticipated. The Baltimore Ravens and the Super Bowl champion defending Kansas City Chiefs. So if you didn't get to see this game, what I'll say about it is, first and foremost, these are two of the absolute best teams. These are two of the absolute best teams in the NFL. Almost definitely going to be two of the top contenders in the AFC. And we got a lot of good, promising fantasy performances from some players and a couple who, you might be a little more nervous about based on getting a little bit less success in fantasy than you expected. So let's start with the stock up here. So starting with Rashi Rice, the wide receiver for the Chiefs, who, by all accounts, played a really good game, and he looks like the guy who's just going to get all these short to intermediate passes. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, being one of the most accurate passers in the league. That team having such an awesome offensive, creative, or like the creativity on offense, the different plays they'll scheme up being great. Rashi Rice just seems like that consistent guy, especially if you're playing in a PPR league. He had a great game this game, and he to me, I think he should have been a third-round draft pick. I think that's how it's going to play out this year, and I drafted him a bunch, but it was like the 5th or 6th round. So even if you got him in the 4th or even the 3rd round, I think you got an awesome draft pick there. Also on the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy, the rookie wide receiver, had a really nice first game. So Worthy, really explosive rookie player. It looks like he's going to be a guy who's going to be very valuable in fantasy. He might be a little boom bust if he only gets as few plays as he got overall this past game, but he did so much with the plays he got. I can't imagine he doesn't get a bunch more plays in the curse of binding. That's not good. I think he's going to be a wonderful late round or mid to late round draft pick. So good on you if you have Rashi Rice or Xavier Worthy. Stock down a little bit maybe on Travis Kelce. He was drafted so high. I think he's going to be fine, but with these other receivers and the way the Chiefs like to run the ball, I just don't think Kelce's as likely to be a top 2 tight end. He might be, the third, top 3, but I think he's more like a top 6 or 7, 8 maybe. I think he'll be better than a lot of dudes on a week-to-week basis. But, this game shows that he's not the centerpiece. He's not the number 1 receiver on that offense. And I think that's going to hold. I think the kind of... I'll get into this a little more in a second. But let me just finish by saying stock up on Isaiah Pacheco as well, the running back. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I got to do one more thing here. Oh, God. Gotta get out of here before I die. Don't die. Okay. Eat rotten flesh and you'll be fine. That's the moral of this story. Isaiah Pacheco looks like he's the guy. He's great. They're going to use him in the passing game. They had a pass player to set up expressly for him. Carson Steele, I think rookie new guy, he shares with Pacheco the trait that he runs like he is angry at the field itself, the field of play. He runs hard. He runs angry. And that's great. He's definitely the handcuff guy for Pacheco if Pacheco gets injured. But it's Samaje Perine is kind of the third down back, as it's often described. I think in general that Perine might be valuable in deeper leagues, but I wouldn't personally. I'm just not excited about that. I think Pacheco is going to be the guy there, and that's exciting. And of course, Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a strong team. He's going to be a super consistent fantasy quarterback, I would think. There might be games when he just doesn't have to do as much. This was, of course, a busier game, with 2 good teams, so he had to, keep working. Moving over to the Baltimore Ravens, man, a lot to talk about here. Lamar Jackson, stock up. He is going to carry the team on his back when the game calls for that. His passing left a little bit to be desired in terms of accuracy. He missed a few drowned. I don't like drowned. He missed a few passes that just looked like he was just plain inaccurate. And that wasn't great. But everything else was wonderful, top notch running and top notch keeping drives alive. They're going to have so much drivage to have. Stock up also on Zay Flowers, in my opinion. Now, Zay Flowers didn't have a massive... Oh, crap. Drowns are throwing tridents. Which way are they throwing them from? I must avoid them. Tridents are bad. Oh, God. Where are they throwing them from? Super dangerous. Sorry, I got distracted. Zay Flowers, in my opinion, had exactly the game that you would hope for, or at least the game that starts out in a good direction for him in terms of how he's trending. I think that he gets open. He's fast. He does like all these. He's kind of like a little bit like Rashee Rice in terms of his role for the Chiefs. The main thing is just that he gets where he needs to get. I think he and Lamar kind of will do like the improv show, the Lamar and Zay improv show, and they'll just be ducking and dodging and making plays happen, and avoiding defenders, and just I think that Zay Flowers is gonna have a pretty stable role. Now, he's not gonna be a week winner every week, but he has the potential to be a week winner once in a while, and I'm excited to have him. If the person who has him isn't excited, only got like 8 points or something in half PPR fantasy points, buy low, in my opinion. I think that the Ravens offense this week was a little different than we're going to see it most weeks. I think they're going to be able to run the ball a bunch and salt games away, and so don't panic completely on Derrick Henry's usage. Although, man, I got to say, in games that are close or games where the Ravens are behind, Justice Hill, he was on the field so much of the time, and Derrick Henry was not on the field so much of the time in this game that it's understandable if you're worried about Derrick Henry relative to where you drafted him. I think he's going to be fine, but I think Justice Hill is absolutely one of the revelations of this game, or the stock up players of this game. I think he's going to be really valuable, and he's probably one of the top waiver ads at the running back position for sure. As for the rest of the offense, there's one very big story, which if you follow any fantasy football news or read, columns about the waivers, you've probably already heard about, which is Isaiah Likely, the tight end who is presumed to be kind of the tight end 2 of this team, with Mark Andrews, the longtime fantasy and real life football star, being the number 1. Well, likely this game was the number 1 with a huge game, 2 touchdowns, a whole lot of awesome catches. I think he had 2 touchdowns. I don't have the stats in front of me, but he had at least one, I think 2. He almost had, or maybe he almost had the second one, so that's what I'm thinking of. He almost had the game-winning one. In any case, it was a huge game. He looked really good, and the way the offense was set up, he really was doing a lot of what you expect. Oh, God. Somebody's shooting at me with a trident? Oh, my God. Look at that. Look at that. You almost hit me with a trident. That's so dangerous. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews did not have a lot of points in this game. If you go deeper in the analytics, I haven't gone personally, but the narrative is that if you go deeper in the analytics, you should not panic too much on Mark Andrews. He had just as many, routes run, just as many opportunities basically as Isaiah Likely did, and that the defense was double teaming Mark Andrews, thus, creating more opportunities for Isaiah Likely. But I will say, I think Isaiah Likely is totally a smash pickup. If I had been doing this show before the season, I would have been telling you, I would have been saying before week 1, but especially like before the particular player's game, in this case, it was on Thursday, there's players that are on your waivers that if you have a spot on the end of your bench, you should make a speculative ad in case they go off in the game, or in case the person in front of them gets hurt, is another way you can do this. If it works out for the favor of this player that you picked up at the last minute, you just got them for free instead of having to spend a top waiver claim on them. Isaiah Likely was the guy to do that with this past week, or at least this past Thursday. He was the guy to say, okay, I want to go and grab this dude just to see. Maybe, the rumblings all off season were that he's good, and there was talk about maybe he kind of becomes, usurps, if you will, Mark Andrews in the tight end 1 and does more. He's younger, he's athletic, people are excited about his play. You could have had him for free. But now he's going to cost you, and you probably won't get him anyway because he's going to be one of the top waiver tight ends of the week. And of course, correspondingly, stock is down on Mark Andrews. I am genuinely scared. I didn't draft Mark Andrews for this exact reason. If I did, I would not have left a draft without Isaiah Likely, which you, again, if you didn't do that, this is how you learn, by making mistakes, right? But I think I'm genuinely worried about him, and I am genuinely worried that Derrick Henry was drafted a little too high. I had him fall really hard, like fall multiple rounds to me. Where'd that trident guy go? Oh, he's still there, isn't he? It's dangerous. I had I had Derrick Henry fall a couple of rounds to me in like the 4th or 5th round. I think it was 4th round probably. I picked him in a PPR, full PPR league draft. And I got to say, he might have been better than most of the other running backs available at the time. I don't even know if Joe Mixon was even on the board at the time, because I like Joe Mixon too, but man, not looking great for for his usage. Again, I think that's going to change. I wouldn't overreact to game one, because I think in most games that Ravens team is going to be able to get big, strong leads. Their defense is going to kick butt, and it's just going to be, let's just run the ball a bunch and just kind of, run the ball a bunch. And I think Derrick Henry's going to be fine, but not maybe as great as some of the other running backs he was drafted around. Like in half PPR leagues, I saw people taking him over Saquon Barkley or Pacheco or somebody like that, and that's gonna, I believe, look like a mistake from now on. So I do think the Ravens in future games will have a different game script. So you can rely on Henry to at least, get you some more volume there. And I think Isaiah Likely outscoring Mark Andrews this season was already likely, and you should have been reacting to that. Now I think it's even more likely. See what I did there? It's like Mr. Likely is likely to be like the number one TE on the team. Yeah, good stuff. Good talk. Moving on. The Eagles played the Packers on Friday night in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This was a game also to pretty good teams that are widely seen as and looked generally like contenders in the NFC in this game. There was definitely some kinks to work out. Across all of week one of the narratives is that there were a lot of teams that looked a little sloppy, a lot of offenses, and for that matter defenses that had miscues and had issues. So it was actually something I didn't think of, but I should have. Like, this is the thing. Like, in fantasy football, the more knowledge you can actually ingest and like make sense of and use to contextualize your decisions, generally speaking, the better you can do. To an extent. There's obviously some notion of information overload is possible, but in this case, if I had been reading reports beforehand about concerns about the field conditions, concerns about the slipperiness of the field that they played on in Brazil, I might have been even more wary of that negative case for Jordan Love, which indeed turned out to be the case in this situation. The field was really slippery. It hurt a number of the players, in the sense that they slipped and fell on plays that they otherwise might have had some success with, and Jordan Love among them. So it was a sloppy game in certain ways. But to stick with the Packers at first, I would say, and by the way, if you weren't paying attention, Jordan Love at the very end of the game was unfortunately injured. He had what is now reported as an MCL injury, which is a mediate cruciate ligament or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can look it up. It doesn't matter if I know it, right? It's an MCL. He's expected to miss a few weeks of football, not a whole season, not even half a season maybe is the expectation. Horsey. But just be aware of that if he was your quarterback. But in my case, I made the wrong decision, especially with Jaden Daniels having a whole crap ton of points on Sunday. But stock up on the Packers for the defense, first of all. I mean, the defense for both these teams look legit. Ooh, it's a village. Jordan Love being injured, none of the other Packers players that are in the wide receiving game, at least, wide receivers, tight ends, etc., can be really said to be stock up in the short term. You can sort of say when Love gets back from injury, you expect them to have value, but in the immediate term, Malik Willis is going to be the quarterback for that team. From what I've seen of Malik Willis in the past, and what I think, there's no such thing as a pure consensus, but what a lot of people seem to think, Malik Willis is not particularly dangerous at this point in his career as a pass forward attacking player, and therefore the Packers will not necessarily be very productive and prolific in the passing game during Malik Willis's tenure filling in for Jordan Love. So be wary of all the Packers in the immediate term, in the next week or two. But it will be something. Oh, okay. It will be something where they have value down the road a little further. I think Jaden Reed is the big beneficiary of this game. Going into the season, there was a lot of, there's so many different receivers on the Packers. Who's going to be the guy? What is beetroot soup? It looks like the answer to that is Jaden Reed has maybe the most valuable role in the sense that he has the explosive downfield plays, as well as the scheming running back touches, as well as the yards after the catch short plays role. So I think of him, he's not literally like maybe as he doesn't have the same play style or level of physicality as like a Deebo Samuel, but he's in a similar role as a Deebo Samuel. He gets those running back touches occasionally, and he gets all that other cool, valuable fantasy stuff. So Jaden Reed is the big winner there. Again, once Jordan Reed is back from his injury. What the hell is going on with this house? Weird. Whoa, that is what? Wow. Oh my God, look at that. That's incredible. That's a screenshot right there. Jeez. Cool. That is some good stuff. So, as for the rest of the Packers wide receivers, you got Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who I think are going to, in their respective roles, kind of be consistent, not necessarily fantasy. Like they might be a little inconsistent for fantasy, but they're going to be consistent in that offense. In that Doubs is sort of the mid-range guy who's going to get a lot of the potentially less fantasy valuable, but real life valuable, mid-range kind of stuff. And some occasional touchdowns. I think that Christian Watson is the guy who has the potential to get more touchdown plays, have a little more of the red zone work, but may not have enough volume game to game to really hold a lot of value for you. Like he's only going to get a couple of catches or a couple of targets, in an average game. So that's a bit of an issue, or a bit of a, it makes me hesitant to get excited about having either him or Romeo Doubs for that matter. And Dontavian Wicks, the other receiver who people were looking at coming into the season, I think his role is a bit too small. He's going to be very boom or bust. So, yeah, he's maybe good if you need to take a swing, or if one of the other receivers misses a game here and there. That's something to do. Oh, I wish I could feed the cat fishies. I need fishies. So I need to deal with. I live in this village now. I live here now. Are you okay with that? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm going to live in this house for the moment. No, I'm going to live in a house that already has a chest in it and is cooler than that house. No offense. Oh, you're cool. You have a chest here. Yeah, I'm going to live in your house. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles, we have stock up for, I think, this whole offense in a sense. It really just looked like they had it together. It looks like they're a pretty strong team. They're gonna do mostly good things. Ooh, I forgot I had that. I'm pretty excited for them overall, to have a good season. Most especially Saquon Barkley, running back extraordinaire, still working his prime, and man, does he have a better situation than he's ever had before. I'm excited for his production. I think he had a huge game, but I think he's going to have lots of huge games. He is somebody who, I was trying to target. I love drafting him. Really, really like for the end of the first round, Saquon Barkley. But it doesn't matter now. You either got him on your team or you don't. I'm excited for that whole Eagles offense, but most of all, Barkley, he just looks great. He's just going to be awesome, I think, all the time. I think that the receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, have the roles we expected, are going to do what we expected. I think that Dallas Goedert has, I'm not excited, but I'm happy if I don't have a higher tight end and he's like my late round tight end, not even dart throw, but like my late round pick a tight end before they're all off the board kind of pick. I think Dallas Goedert, you could do a lot worse. He's going to be okay as kind of the third target in that passing game. What else do I want to say? Yeah. I think that's about all I need to say for that team. I'll just add one more note about the Packers. I think it's a buy low opportunity for Jaden Reed after a week or two of Malik Willis or whoever else they put in there. You might want to try to grab him. You might want to watch if Dobbs or Watson does kind of emerge as even more than they were. Going back to Love, it might change. But my point is, Matt LaFleur, their coach, seems to be the kind of coach who's going to help offensive players succeed in fantasy. And so I think that that's a good offense to invest in longer term, i.e. it's more of a stash going on there. And I will mention the backup running back, Emmanuel Wilson, and the starting running back, of course, Josh Jacobs should be mentioned. Jacobs had a ton of work, and people who drafted him were I think, decently excited that this was a solid game. He didn't jump off the page to me in the eye test, but he seemed fine. It's kind of like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, to me, differently than Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry looked slow, and that's part of why I'm concerned about Derrick Henry in the Ravens game, or for the Ravens team. Josh Jacobs didn't look slow, but he didn't look explosive and badass like a lot of other running backs you see this week in the games. So I'm happy to buy low on those guys. Oh, hi. Hello. I think that the Packers are going to be good. It's going to take a few weeks. I think Jordan Love is a good buy low candidate. Also, if you can, if you have a bench position for him, try to trade for him. Maybe someone else who they need somebody in the short term anyway. Maybe they already have a second quarterback. Just see if you can trade for Jordan Love. Who knows? Maybe people forget in the next couple weeks about the fact that this team is actually promising with him at the helm and that he looked generally good as a passer in this game. So, moving on to the Sunday morning football or Sunday early afternoon football, depending on your time zone, or Sunday night football if that's the first game because you're like in Europe or something. But you know what I mean. Or I don't know, what time is it in Europe when the morning? Who knows? The point is, moving on. Yeah, I just did a whole section where I covered the Texans-Colts game. I just did a whole section where I covered 2 or 3 games just now while I was exploring this whole cave over here, lighting it up, going down, fighting a few things. I didn't record any of it. I thought I was recording, and I wasn't recording any of it. So, yeah. We're going to talk about those games again. Or, well, for you, it's the first time. So, anyway, oops. Moving on. Sunday morning football. The game that was on my local TV, to my dismay, was the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Atlanta Falcons. And it was not the most exciting game to watch. But it was fine. It was cool. It was interesting. We learned some stuff. I'm going to start with the Steelers, who I don't know what it is about the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it feels like it kind of feels like this is the team they are every year. They're like, I don't know how to describe it. They're like, well, I do know how to describe it. They don't have a very good offense. Like their offense is not that good overall, but it's slightly okay, kind of, maybe, sometimes. Just enough, and they have a good defense, and they play these like close, low-scoring games, and they still somehow manage to get wins, even though they seem to not really have any business. Oh, whoa, wow, okay, that's more dangerous than I expected. They don't really seem like they have any business getting wins, you know what I mean? It's just weird. They're just not that good, is really what I would say. But they somehow are 500 or better teams every year, and I kind of feel like this year they're going to be the same thing, which is strange and sort of infuriating. But hey, this is a dangerous place I gotta set up a bed here, up here, a little respawn spot going here, just in case I get killed down here. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a kind of, I don't know, like it's going to be another year like that for that team. Here we go. Whee! Oh God. No, watch out. Okay. Oops. How do I do this? Oh God, I'm dead. Yeah, well, sorry. I'm not very good at this game, really. I'm just going to run like crazy. Oh, ouch. That wasn't supposed to happen. Oh, that's real bad. This is real bad. Oh, I'm dead for sure. Dead for sure, unless I can escape and dodge all these arrows. Look at me dodging. Oh, okay, I'm dead. So, who on the Pittsburgh Steelers is relevant for fantasy? Well, I guess you got, what's his name? The kicker, Boswell. Boswell is basically your main man for fantasy purposes. As far as I'm concerned. I'm just going to try to get back up here and change my whole approach here. Oh, God, there's a creeper right there. Oh, God, please let me get into this waterfall without dying. Oh, my God, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh, God, okay, that didn't work. Chris Boswell, the kicker for the Steelers, is like in one of those situations where he just totally kicks butt for fantasy purposes, right? He's, you know what? I'm just going to blow all you guys up with this creeper right here. Come on, creeper, blow these guys up. Okay. So yeah, what am I trying to say? The Pittsburgh Steelers are not exactly world beaters. Oh my God, there's so many of those dudes. I'm never going to be able to survive this. I'm going to have to come back with totally new stuff. This was a mistake. I should have brought more stuff. Oh, now I have to just go to sleep. So basically, their team is like not that good, and I really wouldn't want to have their offensive weapons. With that said, I think George Pickens is going to be consistent. He's got that. He just is that guy. He's got that role. He's just going to be out there getting lots of catches. So I'm happy with George Pickens. If I drafted him, he's kind of what I hoped he would be. And beyond that, I mean, Najee Harris had definitely the lead running back role and seems to have a decent, floor in fantasy. But man, oh man, I'm not really a fan. I'd rather not mess with those guys if I can avoid it. If it's Jaylen Warren, you're nervous. You're a little nervous about how that all went down. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just do this. Jaylen Warren didn't have many carries at all. He didn't have many, snaps. I don't think. It seemed like it was pretty much Najee Harris all the way, and no one was talking about this before the season. At least not many people. But Cordero Patterson is still a guy who can get some things done, and he seemed to be like the number 2 running back. At least that's how it felt watching the game. If you drafted Jaylen Warren, you're probably a bit nervous at this point, and I don't blame you for being. Actually, I'm going to do this too. And if you drafted Najee Harris, it's like, okay, I guess that's fine. That is what it is. So I think Steelers defense and Steelers kicker is really honestly the MVPs from a fantasy perspective of this team. And George Pickens too. Yeah, I'm definitely stock up on George Pickens. And yeah, that's probably it. I mean, maybe stocks up or at least neutral on Najee, what you hoped he would be. I don't really construct teams with someone like him as my running back too. I like to have running back depth, so he's like my running back, 3 or 4, when I build teams. Oh God, this is still gonna be bad. Okay, here we go. This way. Jump. See if I can get up above those guys. Okay. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of the Steelers other than that. I guess that much is like okay, but not great. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you about the Steelers. Justin Fields might have some value, but it's still relatively minimal value. Right? It's still gonna be still not gonna be great. And yeah, I just don't want to mess with them if I can avoid it. That's not a team I want to mess with in general. I don't want any players from that team on my team except George Pickens and Chris Boswell, who is number 1 waiver kicker if he's out there. I'm telling you right now. Oh, damn it. Whew. Okay, I'm going back up until I get my inventory sorted out. But yeah, the Steelers, don't. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, that's a whole nother don't situation. I wouldn't say don't like overall for their players, but man, that did not look good. That was not what you were hoping. If you drafted Atlanta Falcons players, which is too bad because let's just put it this way. So the offense, like many offenses, hinges around the quarterback, and Kirk Cousins, the new quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, just did not look good out there. He looked bad on multiple levels too. It wasn't just like, he didn't have mobility. He looked pretty inaccurate out there, and he also sometimes seemed decision impaired as well as like speed impaired, obviously, which is understandable if he recovering from some injuries like that. But it just wasn't good. It didn't look great, and so that holds back everybody else, and it could hold back everybody else in a longer term sense, in the sense that we might have drafted these Falcons. Now, then again, like anything else, things can change. Things can change quickly. Oh, God. And, we got to give Kirk Cousins a few games to get back. I think his coach, Raheem Morris, even said, that it was a situation of him shaking off the rust. And that's what we got to hope for if we're fans or fantasy, managers of these players. So, but it wasn't great. The one bright spot, and it was very bright, the one great thing for this Falcons offense, Bijan Robinson is who everyone hoped he would be. Oh, now I'm getting shot at again. Going back over here. Back over here to safely fight things. Bijan Robinson was awesome. He was what you hope for. He was that whole get the Christian McCaffrey role in the offense that people talked about all offseason. He was all that and a bag or two of chips. It was awesome. So I'm excited for Christian McCaffrey's return to, I'm getting distracted by this game. I'm realizing this now. I'm excited for Bijan Robinson being this year's Christian McCaffrey. I really do think that's a thing. I picked Brees over him in a couple of leagues where I had an early draft pick, and while I'm still happy to have Brees, now, just watching the first game, my assessment is Bijan is probably the guy I would pick if I could go back and do it over again. I think he's going to be just awesome all year. And so that's great. If you drafted him, congrats. And if you didn't, well, look out or trade the farm for him. Although I don't actually, I encourage people to trade the farm for players, especially early season. But the point is, Bijan Robinson, super duper awesome. And the situation with the pass catchers, I'm not completely panicked because, again, I think you don't overreact to week one in general, but you definitely don't overreact to a quarterback who hasn't played in a while, coming back from an injury, who's had even if I do believe there is a real possibility that this, oh crap, I need more wood, damn it, that this represents, I believe it's very possible that what we saw today is the start of, Kirk Cousins' visible decline as a player, his visible skill decline, either his speed or his, accuracy, decision-making actually declining regardless of the injury. That might be what we saw today, but what we saw on Sunday, but what we saw on Sunday might also simply be knocking the rust off, getting things figured out in a week where lots of teams had really sloppy games, right? So I'm not at all worried I'm slightly worried. I'll say that. I am slightly worried that this is a career decline for him. But I'm not completely worried about Drake London. I'm not completely worried about Kyle Pitts. And beyond that, I'm just, it's wait and see big time as far as I'm concerned. But it's definitely not what you wanted to see from this team in their first game of the season. So it's concerning. Let's see, stock down for definitely London and Pitts, at least a little bit from where we hoped they'd be. Stock up for Ray McLeod, who is looked like out there, their kind of receiver, over the middle. He looked like the wide receiver 2 is the best way I can describe it. And he played well. He passed the eye test, and they might just use him like that all season. So I guess we'll wait and see. But overall, it's a little yikes for the Falcons relative to kind of, again, what you were thinking you're getting into, hoping you're getting into. So, yeah. Moving on to the next game that I took my eyeballs and put them upon the Texans, exciting young team, and the Indianapolis Colts. Oh, shit. I'm gonna explode. Oh, my God. I heard that coming. Where did he come from? I heard that while I was messing around in my inventory. Okay, then. We're fine, apparently, so no worries. The Texans and the Colts. CJ Stroud is still great and will be great, but their offensive line seemed pretty suspect. Seemed pretty sus, as the kids say. I'm not at all convinced or confident that their O-line will give Stroud, the time he needs to really be great all the time. But with that said, he's got so many good receivers. He's such a good quarterback. And now that they do have also such a threat in the run game, I'm not at all worried about this team. I still think they're going to be a great team. And I'm excited to see how it goes. All three of the main receivers seem fine at worst. Maybe Tank Dell is the third. Oh, where did you come from, dude? How did you come from the other side like that? Tanko might seem like he's third in the order. That may be true, but I'm not worried that he's gonna like fail or something. It's just that he's maybe not as dominant as he looked like he could be last year before the injury. Diggs is looking good and in a big role, and he's fired up. I think Diggs in general is the kind of player where if he's emotionally invested with the team and can, they can all stay together, kind of good camaraderie and stuff, that he's just, when he's fired up, he's such a it like makes his game even better. So I didn't draft Diggs, but I'm high on him now after the first game, knowing that he still seems to have the physical tools, and man, is he fired up and ready to go. So all three of those guys are good. And Joe Mixon, I was high on, or at least I would say I was high-ish. I didn't pick him in the third round or anything. And I didn't get him on all my teams, even as many as I wanted to. But Joe Mixon is looking like he is the cat's pajamas there. I'm hoping that, he's not going to get 30 carries every game. That's just amazing that he got 30 carries that game. That's not going to happen every time. But I think he is going to be absolutely, a running back one this season, and get running back one numbers in the sense of, is that where I was before over there? No, I don't know. Yeah, he's gonna get it done, is my point. I hope the villagers aren't getting killed by zombies right now, because I'm under the village here and I don't have a way to sleep. Thinking out loud. So Texans, feeling good about it. They were kind of knocking off a little rust in the first game. It wasn't perfect, but they'll be good, I think. And you don't have to worry about those guys. Not really any other players to mention there. I mean, Dalton Schultz, I don't know. I wouldn't go after him. Maybe you can see him getting some stuff, or if one of the receivers misses time, you could see him getting more stuff. But I just don't see the need to have a tight end like Dalton Schultz. I don't think skills-wise he's a world-changing player. I think he's okay, and he's helpful for the team, but he's not necessarily a guy that you need to put on actually play on your team, I should be gathering iron. I don't even know my way back here. Well, at least I found my way to other stuff I lit up before. That's nice. So moving on to the Colts, I was wrong to doubt Anthony Richardson. I didn't doubt him in the sense that I thought he'd be bad or something, but I didn't draft him in a draft where he was falling, and I think I picked Kyler Murray over him in a draft where he was falling, and that I definitely see now as a mistake, and that the doubt around his ability to pass is overblown. From a fantasy perspective, what if nothing else, what we learned on Sunday is that you can be a less than good passer and still have awesome fantasy production. And I mean, to Anthony Richardson's credit, not to take anything away from his performance, he did have an awesome passing performance, in the sense that the passes that he threw great long passes, long accurate balls to a couple of receivers. Oh, this guy's all right. This guy wants to kill me. I'm on my last little ass bit of health, and this dude's trying to kill me. Jerk. Gotta bounce a little. Oh god. Ooh, this is dangerous. You really... This motherfucker. Die. Thank you. Whew. That was a close one. Yeah, but Anthony Richardson looks good. Why am I... I'm stuck in a weird eating glitch. Okay. Anthony Richardson as a fantasy quarterback, awesome. In terms of his wide receivers, one of the biggest mistakes I made this offseason in my home league draft, which was the first draft I did, was I wasn't thinking, or I hadn't really thought through some of these player differences. I picked up Michael Pittman over Nico Collins and Mike Evans. Those were the next two picks off the board. And of course, looking back on that now, I feel like a total idiot for doing that. I think those guys are both worth a lot more than Michael Pittman. That said, I think Pittman's going to be okay. I'd rather have him as my wide receiver 3, even though I drafted him as my wide receiver 2, which luckily I can do on that team because I drafted Rashee Rice, who's now my wide receiver 2. In my, I drafted him you get the idea. Okay, so what else to say about them? Pittman, I think, is going to be okay. He's going to have some PPR value, but the production is it's just such a minimal kind of expectation in terms of production from the passing game. I think those other 3 receivers are all the same, at least from a fantasy perspective. They're all the same boom-bust potential, catch-along touchdown. We have to wait a few weeks to just see if anyone emerges as kind of a step above the others in terms of that receiving group. Outside of Pittman, who I do think I just saw you jerk. I do think Pittman has enough value, to hold and to play as my flex or whatever, but I'm not in love with it. He might have a game or 2 that's big, but I don't think he's going to have a ton of value for your fantasy team because they're just not going to pass enough, and they won't need to. There's not going to be situations where they need to pass a lot if their run game, and their quarterback's run game, can be effective enough. Did my shield break? I guess it did, didn't it? So yeah, I guess I'm just kind of okay, I'll those receivers, if you want, go for it. But I'm not going to try to parse out who's who in that group. And then in the run game, Jonathan Taylor he's just going to be good. He's just, I think, good. He's going to be what we picked him to be, which is to say, all he has to do really is be the guy who runs the option and runs all of the run-first offense that team's going to want to do because they don't want to pass a bunch. And he's a good, talented player. He's just going to keep on getting yards and keep on getting, opportunities. I'm not worried about the vulturing of the touchdowns. I mean, he's not as high as he could be because of the fact that Richardson will take the touchdowns as the running quarterback sometimes. But he's good. He's good to go. I didn't see anybody there that I wanted to quickly note as a surprise guy whose stock is up or down. I'll just I say wait and see on those Colts receivers basically, and it's Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson who are really going to be the values in that offense. And Pittman, I don't know, I don't love Pittman, but I don't think he'll be good, but I think he'll be okay, maybe okay. And so moving on to the next game that I watched with my eyeballs. I watched this game as a replay also, and kind of, I may not have watched it as closely as something I'm watching live, in real time when I'm watching a condensed replay, trying to do a couple things. It's the Jaguars and the Dolphins. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, we'll start there. It wasn't the best. They didn't look great on offense. Their quarterback play wasn't stellar. Let me back up. Their offense didn't look great. It did seem like another situation where they were kind of shaking off some rust as a team, getting accustomed to things, and maybe miscues and stuff were happening. Ooh, this is cool. And I'm still cool with Trevor Lawrence being kind of a backup quarterback or a low-end quarterback. It didn't play out this game. He didn't have a great game, and it was a lot lower scoring than people thought. I think both these teams are decent offenses, and I think obviously the Dolphins are a good to great offense again this year, although I do think they'll kind of even out a little from last year where they kind of were really blowing people out of the water. Oh God, I don't have my shield equipped. So there's that. Oh God, gotta run. Ooh, that hurt. Okay. Now my shield is equipped. I'm gonna need some more food soon. But yeah, I think the Jacksonville offense is going to be okay. They're not going to be amazing, but they're going to be functional. And I'm not down on those players after this game. I do think they need to, get it together, and it might take them a couple weeks before they start to reach their full potential. But I like them. In terms of receiving group, I was a Brian Thomas Jr. this offseason. I just thought he wasn't a great value and a great addition to that team, and that he's going to be the most valuable receiver. I believe that's the case. After this game, nothing that Christian Kirk showed me disavowed me of that notion. But with that said, I think Kirk still has value and may have, full long-term, good to go all season kind of value. I don't know yet for sure, but that's what I kind of sense is that Kirk will be just fine. Or by just fine, I mean a wide receiver 3. Not what you drafted him to be. Especially if you maybe drafted earlier in the offseason and he was going higher. And I don't know. I don't think Gabe Davis is going to be worth having except in deeper fantasy leagues. Really, I feel like the Jaguars are going to be a good passing offense. I'm hoping that you don't need to panic on Engram either, and that he's going to be, the solid number 3 kind of weapon in that situation. Hopefully not the number 3. If you drafted him, you're hoping he's one of the top 2 weapons in that system. But I do think he might be the one that Brian Thomas hurts the most, because Brian Thomas is like a bigger play guy, but also able to do a good amount of the like athletic mid-range catches that Engram also. I mean, I'm not an expert, so I'm not using the right terminology, and I'm sure there's some stats nerd who has a better perspective on this than I do, but I'm just trying to tell you what I'm vaguely, intuiting and seeing is that I think it might be a bit of a lower season for Engram because, I should have realized that guy was still in range to explode. Because of that, but I don't also completely, I need to get some coal next. I'm not out on Engram at all. I mean, I have him and I'm hoping, I'm hoping that it's just a wait and see kind of thing where once we wait and see a little bit, he gets better. Or he does, he has better fantasy performances because he already is a good player. I don't think his play is going to take a step back this season. He's still in his prime, I believe, and he'll be quite a weapon for this team. So don't worry about Engram, and buy low if you're, someone in your league is worried about Engram, you think. I'm cool with the Jags offense. For the running back, the only big news here, I would say Travis Etienne is still the starter. No one's questioning that. He's going to get a lot of good opportunity for good, valuable touches. But Tank Bigsby is, in fact, sharing that backfield. It really, off-season they were talking about Bigsby being a valuable player, and they were talking about how he was really doing good and looking good. And he did. They both passed the eye test, but Bigsby did look very good. And it really does seem like they're going to split the backfield, 60-40 or whatever, maybe, in favor of Etienne. And, again, Etienne may get more of the high-value touches, but Bigsby is a thing. He's very much worth looking at on your waivers if you're in a shallower league like me and he's out there, or there's a good chance he's out there. He's definitely a guy to take seriously in this Jaguars offense. Unlike last season, he really does seem to have taken a big step forward as a player and presumably taken a decent step forward in terms of his ability to pass protect and do all the secondary things that keep a team, that keep you on the field, keep the team incentivized to have that player get on the field and play. So, so I'm still in on the Jaguars offense. It didn't look great, but it'll get better. The Dolphins, it's a little different, but it's sort of similar. I think the Dolphins offense that we saw is what we're going to see this year, which is a more down-to-earth, a slightly less explosive, blow teams out of the water sort of situation than they had last year, but one that is still very much valuable for fantasy. This could be bad. Let's smack you and run. And smack you and smack you guys, you and you. Why not? Why am I so bad at swinging the sword? I'm so bad at it. Come on. Oh god. Why am I so bad at this? Shouldn't be that hard. Watch out behind me. Just to make sure nothing's sneaking up. Oh god, there's more of them than I had to. Okay. So yeah, I think the Dolphins are a slightly less explosive version of what we saw last year, but that they're still essentially the same team. I think that we're looking at slightly down seasons for like the overall explosive ceiling of scoring, but all of the core players, with the exception of Mostert, who I am legitimately a little bit nervous about, with the exception of Mostert, I think Waddle and Hill and Devon Achane and whoever takes up some of the slack from Mostert, frankly, as the season goes on, I'm stock up on all those guys after what I saw. I think there's definitely a situation where this team does really kick butt, but I think there's also a situation where they just are good. They're a better than average offense. The top couple players, and from a fantasy perspective are semi-stars or are straight up superstars, but that the team as a whole doesn't score 45 points a game or 30 points in the first half or whatever, like they were doing all last season. But totally in on those guys. I do think you're nervous about Raheem Mostert. Personally, from watching the game, my sense was that he really just wasn't. He seemed to be slowing down a little. He didn't pop on the screen the way HN did. And I don't know, it's just a situation where I think age plus the presence of Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jalen Wright, the rookie, who people were kind of and are kind of excited about as a kind of handcuff, potentially someone who will kind of take up some of the slack or take over if one of the two main backs is injured. I think he was inactive in game one, and I wouldn't panic about that. I'd say this coming week, especially with HN picking up possibly an injury that may keep him out of a game. Oh, crap. I did not plan that very well. That this is a time to hold Jalen Wright for a week or two. If they don't activate him for a game with no HN, or if he doesn't look good or whatever, I think he is worth holding on to, is my point, even though he was not active in this past game. And so I'm all HN. I have him in one league, and I think for where he was drafted, he fell in some drafts. Some drafts he went right after the first tier back. Some drafts he went a ways after, at the end of the second into the third round. And if you got him there, I think you got to feel good. Whoops, I didn't mean to throw that. Where'd my sword go? Did I drop my sword? I'm so confused. Yeah, I'm not so good at Minecraft, if you didn't notice, so bear with me while I figure out what the hell's going on. Stick. Torch. And I got no sword, so I guess I'm not going to explore too much more. That rhymed. Moving on. I'm a Vikings fan. Always have been all my life. And one of the games that I made it a point to go rewatch, just for the sake of watching my team, is the Vikings-Giants. Sam Darnold was, I thought, good. I mean, people seem to be pretty high on his performance. It didn't jump off the page for me, but again, I was watching the condensed replay, so it's a little different than watching it all in real time and kind of having time to soak in each play after it happens. So I might have, but it was good. I mean, as a Vikings fan, I'm super happy that, he was good. He was decently good. It was fine. So he's, more importantly for fantasy, probably gonna be fine, or at least decent, if not good, for Justin Jefferson, the biggest asset in that fantasy offense. And we saw a good game also from, it should be said, the running backs. Aaron Jones, who some people were out on, saying he is losing something. I didn't think he lost too much, but I'm glad to see that he's still looking like he's got it. He's got what it takes to be a factor for this team. And Ty Chandler, the second running back on that team, has a role, is already playing, already has, standalone or whatever, value independent of anything happening to Aaron Jones. So if he's out there on your waiver, he's worth a consideration. He looked good. They both looked good, but I mean, that was the case before. And Ty Chandler last season, I think, looked decent, but didn't end up having as big of a role. But if he's improving as a player, by all means, he could have some value. I think this Vikings team, in my mind, it was a game that they easily should have won. I don't think they're, a top contender type of team, or even, I think they're like a borderline playoff team at best. But I don't think they're going to be terrible either. So I think for a fantasy manager, it's like, yeah, I can live with the Vikings and the way they play this season. Oh my God, look at all those guys. But yeah, that's kind of what I saw there. And in terms of a receiver, Jordan Addison seems to have an injury and might miss a game or a few games. Jalen Naylor is seemingly a very talented receiver. He definitely deserves consideration if you're looking for a player to pick up on the waivers or something. I'm not bought in enough that he's going to have enough value and enough work over time to really, seal the deal and make him a valuable fantasy player. Maybe there's a chance, but I don't know. And I'm actually hoping that, if you don't have, I'll say in some shallow leagues, no one picked up TJ Hawkinson, but if you got an IR spot and you can pick up TJ Hawkinson, or if you did pick up TJ Hawkinson, I think you should feel good about that. I think he's definitely going to have value this season as a fantasy tight end once he comes back, of course, from his injury, which it should be noted, maybe very late in the season or not at all. So, there's no guarantee there, but it's definitely a stash kind of a situation. It's not someone you're looking at as, immediate, can help your team in the next few weeks, obviously. But definitely would say to keep an eye on the Vikings as a team that might be okay from fantasies for players beyond, just Justin Jefferson this year. But they're not going to be blowing anyone out of the water, I don't think, even as a fan. I just want to keep it real. I'm not going to try to, make the team sound better than they actually are just because of hopium, as the kids call it. But moving on to the New York Giants, you might have had some hopium coming into the season. Most people probably didn't. And your non-hopium, what a weird natural pillar. I've never seen those in caves, or at least not much before. This cave keeps going down too. So the Giants, they're trash again this year, it looks like. Malik Neighbors is actually going to be fine, which is cool, I think. I think he's going to be okay. They're just going to continue. Oh, that was my phone. They're just going to continue to throw to Malik Neighbors. He's going to get volume and some valuable work just because of the nature of football games. There's a certain amount of plays that are built into a football game, and he's going to be the one on the receiving end of those plays. But yeah, I'm not too excited about him per se, but I'm also, he's definitely valuable. I'm not worried about him either, but I am obviously worried about anybody else in the Giants. And Wan'Dale Robinson is one of the names to note from this game, who did have a ton of targets. He was kind of the short yardage, or making shorter. Oh, that's interesting. Making shorter plays, but getting a lot of targets. So in a PPR format, he's probably worth considering as a waiver addition. It's not a crazy thing to think of adding him from the waivers. But yeah, it's still the Giants, so temper your expectations there. And Devin Singletary, I already had a league where someone dropped Devin Singletary Sunday afternoon or something. He is the Giants' lead running back, but that's about all you can say for him. Maybe look at the guy, Gray, I don't remember his first name, but Gray or Tyrone Tracy, the rookie. We may see more of them. Tyrone Tracy definitely got some play in this game, apparently graded too, but I didn't notice him in whatever, carries he got and stuff weren't enough for me to proverbially write home about. But yeah, I think there could be some contingent value in Tyrone Tracy, especially if Devin Singletary is really bad or misses time or anything like that. So yeah, keep that in mind. These creepers are easy to fool into falling down there. But you should stay away from the Giants offense if you possibly can. Even the Giants kicker and defense are bad. Our kicker's not bad, but I'm saying I'd stay away from the kicker, unlike other teams, because I don't even think they're going to get field goal opportunities very much. It's just bad news all around for them. Moving on to some Saturday afternoon football. Can you believe I did it again? I did a little thing about the Chargers and the Raiders, and I wasn't recording. Okay, so I got out of the cave probably since you last saw me. I can't believe I'm so bad at this. I gotta really not do that anymore. So the Chargers didn't have a great game, but they're also shaking the rust off. And honestly, I think it's a different team, a different Chargers team than we're used to. It's going to be a run-centric team. I don't think Justin Herbert is super valuable for fantasy, but he's still a good to great quarterback all the time, and that's going to be the way it is for this team. Is that they're going to get in occasional shootouts with high-scoring teams, but for the most part, they want to grind out games and have low-scoring wins. They want to be the team that where's the way I came? They want to be the team that that wins with the run game, wins with the defense. And has a quarterback who can take over games when need be, and that's a nice asset for them to have, that they have that quarterback who can take over games, but they're not a team that wants to go and get in shootouts every week, I don't think. So I think that reflects on the Chargers. Well, first of all, Justin Herbert isn't necessarily a great fantasy asset. I think he occasionally will have a big game, but he's mostly probably not as good as somebody else, even that you can, get as a second tier QB1. But I think it does, and I think it also for the wide receivers, there's not going to be a ton of value in this wide receiver group. It seems like Ladd McConkey is the guy though to have. He's the middle of the field, small gains, but like PPR and even non PPR, but like he's going to have the most volume and the most value, I think, for this group. And it's really a matter of whether Quentin Johnston or Josh Palmer can actually step it up and have some value this season. I don't see it from this game. All I saw really was that this is going to be Ladd McConkey getting a bunch of intermediate stuff. They're going to try to have more of an intermediate passing game than a deep passing game anyway. They're hoping Quentin Johnston can be the guy for big plays, which he will somewhat. I don't think it's impossible for him to be that guy, to end up being somebody who has some value as the long touchdown kind of guy. But I don't see a ton of value there. I do think there's value in this running back group, and I'm not completely out on Gus Edwards. But I will say, compared to what we thought at the beginning of the season, it's definitely not as valuable as, he's not going to be the more valuable back in this backfield. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that J.K. Dobbins, he looked like he had more juice. He looked like he had more vision. He wasn't, crazy fast or anything like that, but he looks like he was the guy who really, could help this team win games out of the backfield rather than just be a guy who gets a few yards at a time. Oh man, look at this wolf. You're amazing. Do I have bones? Oh, I do have bones. Oh yeah. Here, Wolfie. Be my friend. He's my friend. Awesome. So yeah, I think bees. I think Dobbins is the guy to have before the season. In shallow leagues, maybe he's still on your waivers after week 1 and you can just grab him. But man, he was the guy I was picking up before week 1 when I drafted a player I could put on IR and then make a free agent snap up before the season. He was my number 1 guy. And it should have been Isaiah Likely, or at least, it should have been both those guys in some cases. I didn't do Likely, but I wanted, I thought Likely even then was a valuable player. Anyway, he is probably, I think, going to be the RB1 for that team. He's going to share work, and it's not going to be some kind of perfect situation, but I do absolutely think he has a lot of value. Whoa, Ender person. Whoops. Bees, where the bees live, I wonder. Yeah, there's going to be some real value there, I think. So grab Dobbins off the waivers if he's still out there, of course. Seems unlikely, but it's possible. Just do your thing. Do that thing, the thing. And who else is there anybody else on the Chargers to talk about? I don't know. I don't think so. Oh, yeah. And one other thing, because I didn't say this, I'm doing it over again. Cameron Dicker, the Chargers kicker, is like a sweet shot of liquor for your fantasy team. I think he's going to be really good this season. He's in one of those offenses that I think is going to have exactly what you kind of want, which is they're not going to be a terrible offense, but they're not going to be an explosive touchdown scoring constantly offense. They're going to have plenty of opportunities for a kicker like him, and I think he's good. And I think the other part of that stack, the Chargers defense, especially this upcoming week, but in general, I think they seem like they're a legit defense who could have some value from a fantasy perspective, especially when the matchup is right. Moving on to the Raiders, the surprise to me here was that Gardner Minshew didn't look that bad. It was like their offense in general might not be that bad this season, and that's kind of I don't know if you'd call it a nice thing, but I think it's nice. I mean, it's nice for those top 3 pass catching weapons. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, and Brock Bowers as pass catchers all passed the eye test to me. They all look good out there, and they all seem to have some value this season. I think Devontae is going to be a nice, consistent, not a ceiling guy, but a floor guy. But I do see the value being there. I think Jacoby Myers has some slightly deeper value, some flex value, but he's definitely up there. And if he's one of your waiver selections this week, I think that's not a bad use of your waiver or your free agent move. And I think Brock And I think Brock Bowers, the tight end, showed everything in a game one. What an encouraging first week of the season for somebody who is one of two tight ends, but is getting used all over the place in the formations and in the plays. He's getting receptions. He, of course, looks good out there, which is what everyone expected anyway. But, man, that's a heck of a good start for a guy who's in his first game. Moving on, the running back situation there is a little more iffy. It's Zamir White and Alexander Mattison kind of splitting the backfield. And it did seem like they were splitting. I guess Madison was more of a third down back. People in the narrative out there seems to be that Zamir White is oops, that's bad for him. He's not going to have value, or maybe just that Madison's going to have a lot of value. I don't know about that. I mean, Madison's a good RB2, but Zamir White was out there running hard. He didn't look bad per se. He didn't look like he was amazing, but he didn't look bad. So I'm not worried. I'm not going to completely jump ship on the Zamir White train, but it's a split backfield, and but like I said, I think this offense is not going to be good, but it's going to be surprisingly not terrible. So I'm cool with all of those main guys being on my team. Although I'm not picking up Madison personally, and I do have one Zamir White, and I'm probably not going to be playing him anytime soon. But I'm not going to drop him either. Moving on to the next game I watched on the afternoon, which is the one that was on TV for me here in Denver, which is the Broncos and the Seahawks. So starting with the Seahawks, stock up for Kenneth Walker, pending the injury that he suffered, which may cause him to miss time. Apparently it's like an abdominal injury, but Kenneth Walker looked good. He got a ton of work. The offense overall left a lot to be desired. It didn't blow up like everybody kind of hoped it was. But for Kenneth Walker, I think the offense is all that and a bag of chips, regardless of whether he personally, or whether the passing offense, blows up. I think Kenneth Walker is the one who's going to have value regardless of anything else. And I'm looking at Tyler Lockett, man. He's still good. I'm sorry if you are the Jackson Smith and Jigba drafter, but Jackson Smith and Jigba is looking like a little less of a thing than we might have thought, because Tyler Lockett says, I'm still here doing my Tyler Lockett-y things. And so, yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf didn't have a big game. It's a little worrisome, but I'm not completely worried there. I just think he's going to be a little bit of a boom and bust receiver this year. He's not going to be a guy who's an every week, star, but he's going to be a star for your team. Sometimes it's going to be hard to predict, which it's not ideal. I know it's probably not what you want to hear, but that's just what it is, I think. I think JSN is the same. He's in a position where he could have some big weeks, Lockett too, but they're going to be hard to predict. And if Geno Smith gets better than he looked in a lot of this game, and the offense in general sort of clicks and syncs up, then you could have some value there. That those guys could be valuable. But I'm not in love with that passing offense that we saw so far. I'm not in love with kind of what we looked at, but I think that they're not going to be a bad team either, and their defense does seem legit and does seem to want to really be, it really be the part of the team that wins them games, or at least keeps them in games. I don't know how much of the bad performance from the Broncos that we saw was actually due to a good defense, and how much of it was just a bad offense, but from the perspective of the Broncos, this was not a great first game for Bo Nix, the new quarterback. Not the kind of thing you wanted to see in general in terms of the overall sort of strength of this offense. It just wasn't good. It seems like, my doggy. It seems that Cortland Sutton, as the number one receiver, has some kind of value there. He did get a lot of targets, and it looked promising in terms of his target share and in terms of what he looked like, in terms of where he was running routes and getting open. But yeah, there's a lot to dislike about the Bo Nix-led passing attack. I'm sitting here thinking, basically avoid, but if you give quarterbacks the grace period to get better, he didn't look like he was the worst quarterback the NFL's ever seen. So give him a few weeks, maybe he actually connects and actually, the game slows down, as they always say, because the speed of the NFL gets rookies off guard and is difficult to deal with. In the preseason, can't really, even give you the real experience of that. Come here, fish. Come here. But I'm not happy about that. But I am holding Cortland Sutton. Might be a buy low situation for him. Might take half the season for that offense to get better. So maybe you don't want to wait half the season for a guy to have enough value. So I get that. I mean, I'm not at all excited about the Broncos offense. And Javonte Williams, similarly, I would say don't panic. It's not great. The split is it's a three-way split. That's the biggest problem there. Javonte Williams is still the first guy, and he still looks decent. He doesn't look like a world beater, but he looks like a decent. Oh my God, why can't I hit you guys? Die. There we go. Yeah, he looks okay, but man, you don't want to see a three-way backfield split for any back. Jaleel McLaughlin seems to be more of the passing down back in a kind of defined role, and so I think that's good. I mean, that's fine. That's a situation where, you want to, in a PPR league, maybe you get a guy like that and you play him in certain games where you think the other teams are going to score a lot on the Broncos. Broncos have a legit defense, but, with an offense that bad, it doesn't mean that they can keep teams off the board. They're going to end up giving up points, and there's going to be games where they're playing from behind without question. Whoa, did you see that? That was a little kind of lag spike there. So yeah, that's my look at the Broncos. They're not really a team that I'm excited about in any kind of a way. Anything else to say about those guys? Probably not. Moving on, we're finally up to the Sunday night game, which was the Los Angeles Rams. Are they still in Los Angeles? I think they are. The Rams versus the Detroit Lions. This was another highly anticipated game. Two teams that are expected to be good this year. The Lions, who a lot of people have as a Super Bowl contender this year. And, there was sloppiness in this game too. The Rams particularly didn't look like they were quite in sync. And I would say that the Lions offense, or the Lions defense rather, proved that it's not a joke. It's a serious defense out there. So this was a situation where both these teams were kind of finding their stride. I'll start with the Rams and just say that one of the big offseason narratives around the Rams with regard to the drafting is Kyren Williams, the Rams running back who was so good last season, picked up off the waivers in the first week or two and won people their leagues, was absolutely a star. There was a lot of questions this year about whether he'd be splitting work with Blake Corum. There was talk of him returning kicks, which he did in and of itself, but the talk was more like, does that mean he's going to have a lesser role, etc.? Well, in the first game of the season, he had all the role. He was out there all the time doing all the things. I don't know what Blake Corum, the guy who everyone thinks is going to be part of this offense that takes half of the backfield or starts to usurp his role. He didn't get a single fantasy point. I don't even know if he got a single snap. It was Kyren all day and all night, which is cool from the perspective of people who drafted Kyren Williams. He's doing enough. He's getting the work. He doesn't look, in my opinion, like a very decent running back, but he didn't blow me out of the water with what I saw. It didn't pop off the screen in that sort of a sense, which is not to say he was bad. It's just to say, oh, I don't have a bed with me. No, it's just to say that he wasn't, he wasn't mind blowing. Basically, that was what I saw with my eyes. Sleepy time. I'm still in on Kyren Williams. I think he's going to be a very good value this season. I'm going to hold Blake Corum for another week or two because, it's like I'm one of those players who, if you draft a player with that risk, you definitely draft a guy who, offsets the risk, which I did with Blake Corum. But I'll wait and see a week or two before I think, oh, he's completely droppable, and that was just a mirage that he'd be involved. The Rams passing game, always a staple of good, powerful, offensive production is the Rams passing game. Matthew Stafford looked good. He looked like the Matthew Stafford of years past in the sense that he generally threw good passes, and I think he's going to be plenty good for everything that you need him to be. Of course, we got the early injury to Puka Nacua. Unfortunately, he is on the IR already, so he'll be missing at least 4 weeks of the season. So that's too bad. You hate to see that for a guy who's so talented, but you also, if you're the Cooper Cup manager who drafted Cooper Cup, congratulations. Your third, maybe second round, but probably third or fourth round pick. Man, oh man, he is looking like one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL for the next few weeks at the very least, maybe for the whole season, because he really looked good out there. He really looked like he's just going to be the guy that just eats up those targets and makes all these good plays, and is the guy who gets touchdown opportunities. Just the Cooper Cup of old, as people say. So be excited about that, and be sad if you drafted Puka Nacua, but be hopeful that it's just a short-term injury and that he can return to his very, very skilled self within a few weeks, or at least within 4 weeks from now or whatever. Demarcus Robinson deserves a mention as the wide receiver 3 by default for that for that Rams offense. I think that Demarcus Robinson is one of the best waiver pickups that you can do. I think he is going to have value every week while Nacua is out, and maybe contingent value, flex option value, even with Nacua back. I think that he's a good, talented player, and that they're going to use him a lot. There was other receivers who got out there, but it really was Demarcus Robinson who has the biggest role, and I think that you should be looking at for your fantasy team. Also, we'll mention here, and it'll come up as one of my tight end ads in the waiver section, Colby Parkinson, the tight end for the Rams, is a guy who had a few looks in the game. They looked like they were using him as part of the offense as a pass catcher, which the Rams have done in past seasons. It's not always a high enough volume role to really, be an elite tight end option, but certainly as a waiver pickup if you have Ferguson injured, or, if you just want to get a backup in general and you can't get Likely, or you're out on Likely, or he's already picked up or whatever. Colby Parkinson is worth a look. I think he, especially while Nacua is out, will have some weekly value, and I would probably, if I was doing rankings, he might make it into my top 10 tight ends in terms of a ranking, in terms of who I think is going to actually get points in any given fantasy week. And Stafford as a QB, I think is probably going to have value all season as like a mid-tier guy, Moving on to the Lions, Super Bowl contender Lions. They looked pretty good, but also not quite fully where you want them to be. But they're what we thought, basically, with one significant change, or, with one significant addition, which is the play of Jamison Williams, who in previous years was seen as somebody who hadn't put it together yet, and he's still pretty young. I think he's a young prospect, but also I think he's only in his 3rd or 4th year in the league. But he's somebody who really, really showed out in this game. And really, he got some good opportunities, yes, and he had some plays that, just kind of worked out, yes, and he had some big play opportunities. He's going to have big play opportunities, but he also was used in some of the shorter plays and some stuff that's less boom bust and is more just consistent. So I personally am in on him being a value this season. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a rough game, and you're not happy with that. His usage overall, I'm not worried. I think he's going to be just fine, and it's just simply a matter of waiting and giving him and the team, a few more games to stabilize the offense. Man, what an amazing, weird structure. So cool. Sam Laporta, the tight end, also kind of what we thought he was, or who we thought he was, which is to say he's going to be one of the top, I think, 3, but definitely 5 tight ends, because he's going to get the volume of a wide receiver 2 in his offense. It's those 3 guys, Jamison, Amon-Ra, and Sam Laporta, that I think are going to get a lot of targets here. It's going to be a good offense on a good team. So, and Goff is a good thrower of the ball and is able to sustain fantasy receivers. I think all 3 of those guys, I'm happy with stock up a little bit, or at least neutral after one game. But if someone panics on St. Brown, by all means, avail yourself of a trade, because I think he's going to be fine too. And the same goes for both of the running backs on that team. Clearly, they have 2 good running backs, and they will split. They will go back and forth. Obviously, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs will be in on different plays. They don't have completely, clear-cut different roles. Like, I think it's true, or it's fair to say that, Montgomery is kind of the early down back, is kind of the back who just will, be a little bit more of a so-called bruiser who's just like forcing yards and early down work and stuff. But I think they're both going to have a lot of value. Montgomery looked really good in this game, and Jahmyr Gibbs looked good in this game too. So I wouldn't worry too much about either of those guys. I'm just going to take the tree from the village here. I wouldn't worry too much about either of those guys. Well, I mean, you wouldn't be worried because they both had decent games, if I recall correctly. But those are the guys to consider. Jake Bates is a rookie kicker. He'll be on he'll be a kicker waiver option this week for you. I don't know enough about his stats or whether he's considered to have a strong enough leg. I personally like kickers who the team has zero qualms about giving them 50 plus, even 60 plus yard kicks because their leg is strong. So I like a kicker who has a high-ish accuracy plus a lot of opportunity, obviously, which has to do with being on either a very high-scoring offense in the case of the Detroit Lions could be that very high-scoring offense, or an offense that's not expected to be getting a million touchdowns, but is, can at least move the ball, which is more like the Steelers and the Chargers cases I discussed earlier. But I think that you can do a lot worse than Jake Bates as a kicker. So consider that as well. And the Lions defense definitely is legit, wants to be a part of why that team wins games every week, and will be strong and will be, especially at home, but will be the kind of defense that can get you fantasy points against a weaker opponent or an opponent with a bad offensive line or an opponent with a questionable decision-making quarterback. So consider the Lions all around. All right. Last in this list of games that I watched, but most certainly not least, the 49ers and the Jets. First things first, we'll start with the 49ers here. Jordan Mason passes the eye test and the fantasy football scoring test. He passed all the tests. It sounds like there's a distinct possibility that the McCaffrey injury is more serious than it was originally expected to be. So hopefully you saw it right before the game, 90 minutes before the game, and you picked up Jordan Mason and no one sort of, sniped him from you or whatever. But Jordan Mason's going to have a lot of value. He's probably should be a top waiver claim this week if there's even a chance McCaffrey misses more time, which it sounds like there definitely is. But hopefully you got him before the game, and if you did, then awesome. I think in addition to being certainly a RB1 while McCaffrey's out, he has value as the secondary back on that team, spelling McCaffrey when he's back, as well as salting away games that the 49ers just dominate, which I think will also happen this season. The 49ers passing game looked good. I mean, I don't know what I can tell you guys, but Brock Purdy's a really good quarterback. Like, he throws accurately, and he's just good. He's not like, he doesn't have to be Tom Brady. He's just good. He really is. So shares stock up on Deebo Samuel for sure. Particularly when McCaffrey's out, you should note that Deebo Samuel seems to have a little bit of a bump in his running back kind of carries or running back type carries or type, even the passes that are like behind the line of scrimmage, yards after the catch. But that's who Deebo Samuel is anyway. He's got a lot of value, I think. I think he might be a little more valuable in my mind this year than Ayuk, but Ayuk also is going to do just fine in this offense. Heck, Jawan Jennings, their third wide receiver, as well as George Kittle, both of those guys can have some upside games and might be worth a flex, I mean, Jawan Jennings might be worth a flex or a deeper league bench stash. If either of the other two receivers were to get hurt, I think he would grow at least a little bit into, at least a decent fantasy role. And George Kittle is who George Kittle's always been, I think, which is he's not going to have consistent points every single game. He's going to have good games for you. Ooh, it's snowing. He's going to have good games for you. He's going to have bad games for you. But he's a good player, and, that's just what you get with George Kittle. Excuse me, sir. I'd like to sleep there. You get, a little bit of a boom bust, but also a good, talented tight end. Moving on to the Jets. I don't hate what I saw. I have a lot of shares of Breece Hall, and I love Garrett Wilson. I have one team where I managed to get both because my league mates let Garrett Wilson fall to me at the fourth pick in the second round after Breece Hall fell to me as the sixth pick in the first round. I still think those guys are going to be fine. This wasn't the best game for that team, but this is a game where I do think it was a get the rust off, get things figured out. as long as this team's chemistry can hold together for the whole season, that's really the thing I'm most worried about here. Because, there's reports that the locker room isn't great and the vibes aren't great. But if this team can actually it's just as simple as like, all you guys have to do is like not self-sabotage or sabotage, each other. This team is going to be good. This team is going to be a legit team. I don't know about a contender, but a legit team that can win some games and create fantasy production. After this game, Breece Hall is good. I'm happy with him. He was used a lot in the different range. He was used obviously out in the field a lot, even in garbage time, which I have mixed feelings about. But he is going to be fine. Although after this game, really, I was like, Bijan seems like he's going to be more valuable overall this season. But Breece Hall is going to be fine. Garrett Wilson looks like the number one receiver. He's getting open. He's doing stuff. Rodgers is looking for him a bunch. I'm happy there. Hopefully it gets better, and hopefully, again, they can kind of hold things together so that they stay on a good page, have good vibes, and help each other be great this season. And I'm talking about not just Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, but kind of the whole team. I'm going to find that cat if I can. Is there any cats in the village still? I'm going to try to find him. So I think Allen Lazard legitimately has value as the wide receiver 2 on this team in this situation. He's going to be not in every week. He's not going to do what he did this week every week, but I think he has enough value to be kind of considered a player to grab off the waivers or to keep on your bench early in the season and sort of see where things go. I'm going to plant some trees. That's a good idea, actually. These are spruces. I can do giant spruces if I get 4 of these. So consider Lazard as a waiver pickup. Aaron Rodgers, for whatever it's worth, to me he looked like he was decent as a quarterback. Like, he looked like he could throw well. He's not going to run as much as he used to, but his throws looked good, and his timing and his preparation obviously is probably really good. So I am oopsie daisy. I'm in on Rodgers as long as he is out there. The pass catchers on this team, to me, seem like they're valuable, and I'm all for it. Should I just make a tree that's gigantic in the middle of this village? Maybe. So yeah, what else to say about those guys? I don't know. Just maybe the kicker there is, who's their kicker there? Zerline. Zerline totally crapped the bed for me, and I think last season too I was high on Zerline, thinking he was going to be good. I just don't know. I don't know if it's age or what, but I just am not feeling it anymore with Zerline. I'm not willing to keep him on my roster. I actually had one league where I drafted him and then dropped him, and I picked him back up again. And I should never picked him back up again. Not that the other kicker I had was doing much better, but yeah, I want Zerline to be valuable, and he probably will be valuable like 1 week this whole season. So don't bother. Okay, well, it's time to move on to the last segment, or the second to last segment of our show. I know this is an extra long one today. Thank you for bearing with me. And if you just skipped ahead to here, well, welcome to the next section. And good thing you skipped ahead, right? Yeah. Cool. We're just going to run through quick thoughts on the games that I didn't watch. These are games where I did watch the highlights to, first of all, what I went and read about the games and, looked at some of the stats and stuff for the different players, read about some of the narratives, what people said about the different players. And I also did, do my own eyeball watching. I did make it a point to look at the highlight videos to kind of validate or potentially change, from what opinions I was reading. So I'm going to go in no particular order here. Start with the Cowboys and Browns. Brandon Cooks is getting looks. I mean, Brandon Cooks is the wide receiver 2. I think he holds value for that team. There's no question. People were saying this before the offseason. Some were savvy about this, but I think he absolutely has value for your team. Are you guys trapped inside a pen? You dumbasses. Oh, that's where the cat is, too. I'm closing that door because I want the cat to stay in there so I can make him my friend. Make him my friend. Here, kitty. Be my friend. Yeah, baby. Got a kitty friend now, too, as well as a doggy friend. Hell yeah. I can't get out until I... So, Cowboys in general, man, it's looking good. Defense and kicker stack, the most elite in the league, right? Brandon Aubrey and the Cowboys defense. Mike Zimmer as the defensive coordinator now. I was a Vikings fan all throughout his tenure as the Vikings head coach, and he really does seem like he is a legit good defensive coach. That defense could be real dangerous this year, and that team in general could be good. Dak Prescott, he's still who he always was, I think, in my mind at least. The long-term story around him is that he's just a little too inconsistent for fantasy. Teams have big games, but he doesn't. He might have a big game, but you can't really be sure. So I don't personally love him, but, man, stock is up for that team overall. I wouldn't be worried at all if I was a Dak manager. I wouldn't overreact to this, but, I also wouldn't have him as my QB1 because I didn't buy the sort of case for him to be super great all of a sudden. You can sit in the snow. I don't want you sitting in the snow. It's cold. Let's get you sitting up here next to ice. I'm sure that's so much better. Right. Oh, hey. You just teleported over to me. Yeah, come up here. Okay, that's fine. You can sit there. So, I don't know. I'm not in love with Dak as my fantasy quarterback, but he was fine. The vibes are good for the team overall after that game. And I think basically the way I look at it, if you have any of the main Cowboys weapons, CeeDee Lamb, I think Brandon Cooks, and even Dak, I think there's a degree of like, yeah, okay, this is going to work out okay for me, probably, right? I would kind of point to running back situation here is just weird in the sense that, people, that's the door. People don't know what to make of it, I don't think. Going into the season, there was a lot of talk about Rico Dowdle being this really valuable guy. I didn't see that at all. I don't think that's the case. It seems like it's a Zeke Elliott thing, but I didn't see the game, so I can't say one way or the other. Oh, you know what? I want these barrels too. I can't say whether Dowdle had some good plays. I didn't hear about him doing anything, and it seemed like what I did see in the highlights was a little more of Zeke actually looking like he really still has something in the tank. So if I had a Zeke on the waivers, which I've seen in one league of mine, which is a shallow league, 10-team league, you could even potentially look at that. I would say he has value. Certainly, I would definitely be picking him up if he was on the waivers as a running back. I don't know about Dowdle. I'm not going to buy that. I'll just wait. And, nothing else there to talk about. Oh, Ferguson. Jake Ferguson's injury sounds like it's short-term, just FYI, but he may miss a week or two. I think even though he didn't, he got injured in the game partway through, his role seems legit. I think he's still a legit top 8, probably tight end, top 10 every week while he's playing. I don't personally think you should go for Schoonmaker, or I don't know how you pronounce that, Luke Schoonmaker, the next man up at the tight end position for the Cowboys. I think you should look elsewhere this week or next week for your tight end replacement. Patriots and Bengals. The Pats defense being decent seems like an inescapable reality. It's a bit like the Steelers in that sense. Doesn't matter how the rest of the team looks. Their defense is somehow going to be good and good enough to help them win games even. So that's a thing, I guess. The Bengals offense looked bad. I mean, it might just be a rust game for the Bengals, but it didn't seem like they had a lot going for them. I mean, again, I didn't see the whole game. I don't know if they're going to have another one of those like really mid seasons. Like there was the Super Bowl year, but other than that, I feel like even with Joe Burrow mostly healthy, they're kind of mid sometimes. And that's what it feels like might be the case this year again. Their running back room got presumably a downgrade. Zach Moss is the lead back. That is the thing. So sorry, Chase Brown. You can hold on to it, I guess. Hold on to him. I mean, you can hold on to Chase Brown and hope that maybe it gets better. But it's Jamar Chase and maybe T. Higgins when he's back, if he's back anytime soon, who's going to produce in fantasy. It doesn't seem like other receivers or even the tight end there is in a huge position to succeed. It could be a rust thing, and they could get better as the season goes on, but it looks like it's a narrow target tree, and I don't know, man. The Bengals just seem like a kind of mid team. I think that they got that Super Bowl that year, and everybody starts talking about them like they're a contender, but they haven't been, and I don't think they're that this year. I don't think they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC even this year. right? Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, even maybe the Dolphins break into that. Maybe the Jets break into that. Who else am I forgetting in terms of like elite teams? Those are probably the elite teams. And yeah, I think Bengals are on the outside of that group looking in terms of, and I'm not saying Dolphins and Jets, maybe one of those two, but I don't know. We'll see. Bengals might get better, but they lost this game in any case. And as for the Patriots, besides their defense, which I just mentioned, you got Ramondre Stevenson. I think he was a good value in drafts, possibly a great value in drafts. I wish I had more shares of him because he was going in those kind of mid rounds, 5th, 6th rounds. You might be able to get him. And if you did, I think you did a good thing. I'm out still on the whole wide receiver group. I didn't see the game itself, but if you did, maybe you'll have some insight into which wide receiver to stash, but just wait and see. The Bucks and the Commanders, that was a situation where it was pretty one-sided in the score and in the highlights even. You saw the Bucks, apparently Baker Mayfield looked very, very good, and he certainly looked good in the highlights I saw, but apparently he looked good all game. Evans and Godwin getting touchdowns. What else is new there? They both are the number 1 and 2 weapons, but there was a number of other receivers, McMillan and I think one other guy. I don't remember his name, but it is, it's not just them, but there looks like there's a lot of volume in the passing game. But definitely Godwin and Evans, especially Evans, because Evans gets the higher value targets in the end zone. And then you got Rashad White at running back. He was good in the passing game. He didn't do a ton in the running game as far as I read and saw. Bucky Irving seems to be more valuable than we might have expected preseason. He might ultimately usurp that early down role completely from Rashad White and make Rashad White more of a pass-catching back and Bucky Irving more of the early down back. But either way, Bucky Irving is probably a top priority on the waivers this week. He looks good. He looks like he's part of that team for sure. And the offense for the Buccaneers might just be good. I mean, Mayfield, it might just, not have been just Canales. That's the only reason that he was, good last year. He might just be experiencing his best, sort of situation in his career and continuing that this year with good team play and a good offense that provides fantasy points. Although I don't know that I would want Mayfield every week. You might take Mayfield once in a while as a fantasy streaming QB for sure. I think he definitely proved that he can still play at a high level. As for the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, man, rookie QB, draft him for the rushing upside, and boy, did he show it. He got like 28 fantasy points in half PPR, 2 rushing touchdowns, a bunch of rushing yards, not so great passing, but man, he didn't need it. He just kicked butt. From the fantasy perspective, he just really kicked butt. What else do you say besides that he kicked butt? He kicked butt. Butts was kicked from the fantasy perspective. If you started him, if you were, it takes a little, takes some stones to start a rookie week 1. But man, he really did come through from the fantasy perspective. Didn't look great as a passer from what I saw and from what I heard. I mean, didn't seem like he had much going in the passing game, even in the highlights that they showed. Hopefully that'll get better. He looked like he can pass, and he looked like he belongs out there. He looked like he's a confident player out there, and I'm up on Jaden Daniels getting better. The ground production's elite already, and I think this offense will evolve. Hopefully it's the same deal with Caleb Williams too. Like, you didn't see in this game what you want to see from the guy, but hopefully the team and the offense is going to evolve, and that's all good. Brian Robinson, I saw that Eckler had some plays, but it looks like Brian Robinson, or it sounds like from outside people's perspectives, that he's the guy, and I'm happy with that because that's who I didn't draft Eckler. I was targeting Brian Robinson in late rounds, and so I hope that that's the case. It seems like, hi cows, what are you doing down there? You poor cows are trapped. Oh, you know what? I should breed you. Make a little cow ice box there. Natural cow ice box. So, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So I don't know. Eckler, I never really liked him, but if you want to go for Eckler, you can, because he is a guy who plays football for that team, and he does some stuff apparently. But I think Brian Robinson's the guy to have in that backfield. And I'm out. All the receivers right now, I'm out. Stock down on McLaurin. I'm genuinely worried. I did draft McLaurin in a couple places, buying the sort of maybe he'll oh, maybe he'll be good this year. Maybe he'll look good. Maybe he'll play better than he ever has, and we'll have a valuable kind of steal from the draft perspective. I don't see it anymore. Obviously, like anything else, you got to give time, but I just don't see it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not happy with McLaurin, but I'm officially worried. But, it's like anything else. You're not going to overreact. You're going to wait a couple weeks, see if he can establish himself in a more consistent role, and see if this team can establish more of a passing offense. The Bills Cardinals, I tried to watch the extended highlight or the actual game replay. I didn't have time, so I watched some of it and I watched the highlights. And Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's the man. He was probably even worth that early draft pick, in the sense that he seems like he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks this season for fantasy so far. And so if you drafted him as one of the top couple quarterbacks and you made an early pick on him, you get back what you picked, which is why you did that, for the consistency, for the guarantee of someone who is really going to be very good this year. It still seems like the jury's out on exactly how the Bills' pass catching group is going to break down. Keon Coleman, it seems like, might be the main wide receiver. Khalil Shakir only got a few targets, but he did a lot with them, and he is the kind of guy who it seems like just has a lot of talent. So, the target share may vary, the amount of targets each game, the amount of pass plays each game may change a lot from game to game for this team. Oh, I need some leather boots for this. But I'm feeling okay to good about Keon Coleman, certainly. I think Khalil Shakir is a hold. I didn't really see if Curtis Samuel did much of anything. Man, Kincaid, managers who drafted Dalton Kincaid, your butthole is still clenched, thinking about whether or not, that's going to all fall apart. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. He might have been this year's hype, player who was super hyped, and then you wasted, you drafted him over some other tight end who is actually going to be a lot better than him. He might be that guy this year, but yeah, you're definitely panicked, or at least unhappy with how the first game of his season went. But I don't know. I think you just wait. I really need some way to get through this snow better, so I'm gonna have to make snow boots, I think. Love these ice spires though. The ice spires are awesome. I need to probably do one of these here. Oh, there's probably polar bears around too. Oh, and the running backs for the Bills, I wish I had drafted more of James Cook. It does seem like what people thought was going to happen with James Cook is looking to be the case, that he's just good. He's just going to keep doing his thing, and that's part of how this team is going to succeed this season, is by running a lot and having James Cook be the primary running back. He passed the eye test for sure, at least in the highlights that I saw. And like I said, I watched some of the full game video kind of thing, and yeah, I think he's just. Oh, so wait, is this not the same as? I can walk on this? I don't understand that Minecraft. Why can I walk on this? But James Cook is the guy. I mean, I'm not worried at all. I'm happy if he's on my team. And I'm also looking at Ray Davis, the sort of backup there who came in and got some plays. He looked decent as well, and it seems like he may have some contingent value. And, so he looked good. Keep that in mind. Ooh, here we go. Found some cool new stuff to explore. So, oops. Okay, that's bad. It's not that bad. So, yeah. So, go ahead and pick up Ray Davis if you want. He's not my top waiver priority, but, I'm not out on him as a waiver pickup or like a free agency grab, stash kind of situation. I think that's a legit valuable handcuff at this point, because he did look good, and it does look like they'll use him a little bit even with Cook healthy. So that's an option for you. Is it getting dark out here? It sure is. Anybody else on the Bills? No. Moving on to the Cardinals. It's not everything you wanted to see from the first week of the season for players that were pretty hyped in the offseason, and Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, and of course Marvin Harrison Jr., the rookie. I don't know. Kyler seemed like he had some decision issues or maybe like vision issues, not seeing the players that were open. I'm not super worried. You can't overreact, but his rushing stuff seemed to be good, and he seems to be he's giving you the rushing floor. That's what you hope for going forward from Kyler Murray. And I think he's a good quarterback, so I don't think he's gonna get worse as the season goes on. I think if anything, he's gonna get better. His wide receivers, man, it was Greg Dortch who had a big day, and I think Greg Dortch has some value as a oh crap, my pick broke. I think Greg Dortch has some value as a sort of wide receiver 3 this season. I'm looking at I guess Michael Wilson's the other guy that people talk about here, and I'm thinking Greg Dortch is probably the guy to have, but I don't know. I didn't watch the game as closely. Maybe you watched the whole game. Why? Oh, I know why. No, wait, what? Why? Oh, there. Marvin Harrison Jr., you're a little nervous by this game, but honestly, this is why his draft position never really made sense to me, is like, I didn't think, no matter how good of a college prospect you are, it's very unlikely that week 1 you and your team are just going to flourish and you're going to be the guy constantly. It's going to take this team probably a few weeks to get better as a team, and it's definitely going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. A few weeks at least to get himself as like this established alpha that people drafted him to be. So I don't know what to tell you there. I just don't think you should have drafted him as high as you did. I mean, I would have if he kind of fell a little bit more than he did, and I luckily didn't have to. But not the first game you want to see. Trey McBride, I mean, at least he looks like a top, 5 tight end or whatever. I think top 5 for sure. I don't know. We'll see. But he didn't have the ideal situation. This is another team where I don't know if this has come across the radar, if people are talking about the team's vibes, but I personally, I don't know. I saw bits of what looked like frustration. I personally am a little worried about this team's vibes being good. If the offense just never gets it together, and or if there's any kind of injuries or they just lose a bunch of games, I just don't know if this team is going to hold it together as well as some other teams might be more resilient. I don't know. I mean, it's just an intuition speaking. I don't know anything about the situation. I don't talk to or know anything coming out of the organization or like the, beat reporters who follow the team closely. I don't know. It's just my sense this year that I had a hard time with Kyler, even though I saw the upside case. I did pick him in one league. I think I picked him over Richardson, which I'm thinking I regret, but I think he's going to be okay, and that whole team's going to be okay, but I just don't know right now that they're not going to be. I don't think they're going to be what we drafted the upside for of any of those guys. And so that's just the reality. James Conner, if anybody is going to be worth his draft position, maybe more so than the others, I think it's James Conner. As long as he's out there and he doesn't have any physical trauma that keeps him from playing football games, he still looks good. He's a consistent player. The Trey Benson, is not taking over 50% of that backfield, it doesn't seem like, so there's no immediate worry about his role getting reduced. I think Benson for now is just a good, backup or RB2 for that team. And Connor's going to be the guy. And I do think the role is a good role. I think that team is going to put up points. They're not, necessarily going to score an insane amount, but they're going to score just fine to keep those players that are doing the scoring, relevant. And who knows? Greg Dortch might outscore Marvin Harrison Jr. this season. That's a very real possibility. Or Michael Wilson. I don't know enough about these guys and their actual player profiles to know whether that's a one-off thing or not, but I do think that's something you should consider, that there's some real value in drafting, or in not drafting, but in picking up someone like Greg Dortch off the waivers possibly. I think the offense is going to be okay. I just don't know that they're going to be great, and I don't know that they're going to win a lot of games because I don't know that their defense is any good. And as a result of all that, I don't know that they're going to pull it together as a team and pull together as a team such that you can really trust them as a... There must be a cave under here. Such that you can really trust them as winners, like league winners for your fantasy team. I think they might be just like okay players for your fantasy team as opposed to, players that are going to put you over the top. Anyway, that's just my sense of it as of now. Moving on to the Bears and the Titans. This was one that I really wanted to watch, and I didn't get to. It just ended up watching other games instead. And I gotta say, man, I was expecting more out of Caleb Williams. I almost started him this week on the team. I picked up Trevor Lawrence. I had one team where I only drafted Caleb Williams, and I gotta say, I picked up Trevor Lawrence before the game because I thought he had a better matchup. And I'm glad I played Trevor Lawrence, but they both didn't do very good. But Caleb Williams did not look good as an NFL passer at this point. I think he will be. I still totally have belief in him, not just from what I saw in the preseason, but that in of itself showed me that he has the tools, and he definitely has the receiver group. I think this Bears team is going to be a good team. I think their defense is legitimately good, so that's a reason why I'm still not out on any of those Bears offensive players. Even DeAndre Swift, who I think only had 10 carries in this game. He might have got a couple of receptions or at least targets in the passing game. But I don't know. I'm definitely feeling like this is a situation where you don't overreact, don't worry, don't freak out. This is still going to be a fine situation for him. For Caleb, but also for this team more generally, and the receivers, of course, being the main guys that you look at. I don't know. I think the Bears are still going to be good because that defense is good, and because their receivers are good, and because their coaching is presumably not bad, and because I think Caleb Williams the team will evolve and they'll put it all together. It's just a matter of how quickly will they do that. Will they do that a couple weeks from now? Will they do that halfway through the season? Will they not do it really until late in the season? We don't know. But Caleb's a buy low, in my opinion. If someone has him as a backup quarterback and just doesn't care now that maybe their starting quarterback looks good, you just make a trade for Caleb Williams now when his value's at its lowest. I think DJ Moore is the wide receiver one on that team. Keenan Allen is not as washed or as marginalized as we heard or thought going into the season. He's still going to be out there and getting a bunch of targets and PPR points. I could see that continuing. Rome Odunze, I don't know if his injury is going to keep him out. I heard that he got a small injury, but I don't know if it's serious or if it's just, one game or 0 games missed. But in general, just not enough targets for him. I mean, he's still probably a hold for longer term. But that Bears team needs to get better on offense before you can really trust them highly. But I still think you can, DJ Moore, you can put in your lineup, and potentially Keenan Allen. They're still going to throw, and they're still going to trust Caleb Williams to throw the ball and to get better. So, and I trust him too, for that matter. DeAndre Swift didn't impress, apparently. That's the impression people had. I think I saw a couple touches and he looked fine. I think he only had 10 running back touches, but the point is, people are worried. I wouldn't worry too much. I wouldn't overreact. He's probably going to be fine. But we'll wait and see. None of the other Bears running backs inspire confidence right now. So the Titans, I don't know. I didn't see this, but it seems to me that the Titans offense is still not great. Tony Pollard got more work and did more with it, and maybe looked gooder also than Tyjae Spears. But they're both sharing, and the coaches said something about balancing it a bit more out and having Tyjae Spears get a bit more work to balance it out or something. I don't know. I mean, I didn't draft either of those guys, but if I did, I would, I guess. I mean, Pollard supposedly looked good, so I'm hoping that that's the case, and he still kind of outplays Spears for 60% of the backfield work. If I have Spears, then it's kind of like Chase Brown. It's the kind of player some people were really high on, and now you're just sitting on somebody who you're like, I don't know if this is worth much at all, but we'll see. it's worth a hold, obviously. Calvin Ridley apparently looked fine as the wide receiver 1. DeAndre Hopkins got injured again, and I think he only had like 1 catch, so I'm a little concerned that he's done having fantasy value, possibly for the rest of his career. But he's been an amazing. Oh, hi. You want to be on top of the mountain? Okay. Cool. Where was I? Beyond that, I don't know if these pass catchers have any value for the Titans. I don't think Levis. I mean, Levis is a wait and see, streaming quarterback or backup quarterback. I'm not excited about that, but I'm not excited about this Titans team in general. That's why I didn't draft them. Moving on to the last one of the week. Not the last one. It was actually on Sunday morning, but the last in terms of many people's hearts. Sorry, Saints fans, but the Saints and the Panthers. Actually, I should apologize for the Saints fans. If anybody deserves an apology, it's sorry, Panthers fans. Your team is crap again this year. Your team is butt cheeks this year, it looks like. Bryce Young has not taken a step forward so far. He didn't look like he was going to take control of that game at all. Even in the highlights, it was kind of like, oh, this guy doesn't look like he's has good vibes out here at the quarterback position. Deontay Johnson apparently did plenty to get open, but Bryce Young just kind of tanked the things for him. I stay away from the Panthers. I'm worried about even Jonathan Brooks, who I have in the IR slot in a couple of leagues. I'm worried he's going to be useless, but maybe by the time he comes back, and maybe because of his talent and because of that team, they'll put something together. That's what you can hope for. And the same is true for the Deontay Johnson manager. You got to hope that they put it together. He gets open. He is going to be a PPR value if they can actually throw passes that get to the receivers. So other than that, though, I don't want anything to do with this Panthers team. And as for the Saints played great, and you just have to wonder how much of it was the terrible Panthers team. I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but this Saints team legitimately looked better than people expected, me included. Derek Carr, in the highlights, he looked good, but people who wrote him up said he looked really good all game. The offensive line apparently is a bit better than expected because they were expected to be a real problem. Again, how much of it was a terrible Panthers opponent? I don't know. Chris Olave didn't do much of anything, but it seems I think he'll do plenty in closer games, especially. This is the kind of game which isn't really the game script you want for Olave because he's like a short, mid-distance and some long passes kind of receiver. In a game where they have to be in a shootout, when they have to keep getting drives that keep getting first downs, and they can't just lean on the run game. Olave, I think, is going to have plenty of value, so maybe a buy low candidate. Rashid Shaheed is, in fact, a valuable player and an incredible value on the waivers if he's on the waivers in your league. I think he's definitely the wide receiver 2, and he's talented enough as a player, and certainly you saw it in this game, he's talented enough to make that mean something, i.e. that being the wide receiver 2 on the Saints becomes a valuable role with Shaheed. He just had so many high-value touches. He's got some of that yard after catch, some of that scheme him in for a running back kind of, or for running, for a carry. Like, he's got all that, man. I'm up on Shaheed. All this offense is stock up. Kamara, I also doubted before the season, and he's apparently still him. So Kamara's good, and this offense is better than expected. So hell, throw in Blake Groupie, one of the best kicker names out there, Cameron Dicker, and there's some good kicker names out there, but man, Blake Groupie, fun to say. And I think this is one of those offenses that is great for kickers. They're probably not going to be as dominant as they were this past week, right? In terms of they're going to be in games, but their offense is competent enough to get them into field goal range regularly. And I guess Groupie has a good leg. No poopy on Groupie. No. How about like do the Groupie doopy do. Okay. This was a long one. Thank you so much for bearing with me. We are finally ready for the final segment of the show, which I'm going to breeze through because a lot of these names already got mentioned in the earlier segments. These are my waiver suggestions and ideas for the week. Starting at the running back position. So you always, first of all, you want to look at injuries and players that are expected to miss a game or two if you need the short-term answer on the waiver. If you don't really need so much of a short-term answer on the waiver, your priority should shift more to long-term value, i.e., which players you expect to not only have value for 1 or 2 weeks, but for the whole season. And then to go to the other extreme, you can look for stashes, who are players who won't give you value in the short term, whether that's due to injury or due to the role that they're in being smaller, but that you do see value in later and therefore are worth stashing on your bench or in your IR spot, etc. So at the running back position, J.K. Dobbins is still out there in a fair amount of leagues. If he happens to be out there in yours, I think he should be a priority here. I don't know if he'd be my number one priority. I think at the running back position, I mean, you have if Kenneth Walker misses games, then Charbonnet is a value for those weeks. Probably above someone like Dobbins. In other words, in the immediate term, he might have more value than Dobbins. But Dobbins is probably the wide receiver or the running back one for a team that's going to run a lot. So don't overthink it. If he's out there, grab him. If Tank Bigsby is out there in your league, which he isn't a lot more, I think he's clearly the running back 2, but he's clearly the running back 2 in a team that's going to have a decent offense, and he's going to have a decent role. Bucky Irving is a big one. I think he has a lot of value to be RB2 and potentially a sort of semi-RB1 or a 1B kind of 1A, 1B situation on another team that might have a lot of value and is not going to just, their offense is not just going to shit the bed. I mean, they're going to be in games. They might even have leads because of a high-powered passing attack, so they can salt away games. So Bucky Irving is a top one for me. Justice Hill on the Ravens, I'm not saying these in any order. Like, these are all guys that you should give serious consideration to, depending on your league settings, depending on your team. But Justice Hill played good. He looked electric. He's going to be the passing down back. It's definitely not going to be Derrick Henry. So you can expect him to be out there in game scripts where the Ravens actually have to, they don't get big leads, which is not going to happen all the time. But like you saw with the Chiefs, it does happen occasionally. Those are the games where Justice Hill is going to shine. I don't think he's going to be as valuable in games where they can get 20-point leads and just ice the game with the running and the defense, which is probably going to happen more than you'd like if you do have Justice Hill on your team. But there's value there. I think Cordell Patterson is, man, he's probably got more value than Jalen Warren. I don't know. He's kind of lower on the list here. But if you need somebody for a running back spot, I think you could do worse there. Jaleel McLaughlin, I think his team is going to be chasing a lot. He's the Broncos running back who is kind of the passing down back. So if the Broncos are chasing and behind in games, McLaughlin might be out there a ton. So that might be some value there. And then Madison, kind of similar reasons. Maybe they think he's the passing down back. He is a pass catcher, but he's less of a true pass catching back in the mold of, like, McLaughlin is in the mold of a lot of smaller, agile pass catching backs. Madison's not that. He's a bigger, regular size kind of running back, but he seems like he has a role on that team, and they may be chasing. I don't know if they put him out there on passing downs, but if they do, maybe that's, they're going to have passing downs is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I'm a little less in on Madison than someone like McLaughlin. Dudes like Tyler Algier might be out there if you're looking for more of a handcuff. I mean, it's Bijan season for sure, but Algier might have a little bit of flex value, and certainly if that offense gets better but continues to be a run-first team, they're going to want to spell Bijan, so it's not the worst thing you could do. Ray Davis looked good. Tyrone Tracy, maybe just because why not? It can't get any worse. Or maybe it can in the Giants country. So maybe Tyrone Tracy's at the bottom of this list for me, but those are some names to consider. The wide receiver, I'm getting ahead of myself. The wide receiver position, he and him is Rashid Shaheed. I think he's probably my number one there. If he's not already been picked up in your league, Brandon Cooks. I guess Brandon Cooks is only rostered in like 33% of Yahoo leagues, which kind of blew my mind. So maybe Shaheed is the one. If he's out there, get him, but you're more likely to have an opportunity to get Cooks. I think he's a good choice. Tyler Lockett is out there in a bunch of leagues, shallower leagues. Khalil Shakir's out there in shallower leagues if you're into that. What's that guy doing in the distance? Dude is just spinning in place. That was crazy. Those are probably the upper echelon, although Dortchy, can't you see? Sometimes your passing game involvement just mildly interests me. And I just love your non-flashy ways. This is why you're one of my choices for the waivers. Demarcus Robinson, definitely in the short term, but I think he has real value there. Possibly even with Puka Nacua back, but short term, Demarcus Robinson has value. Wan'Dale Robinson for the Giants has PPR value if you can, not have to like watch the Giants play. That's probably a good thing for your health. Alan Lazard is probably a wide receiver 2 on that team. Long history with Rodgers, and we all know that actually does mean something with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. So he's probably up there for me also. Jerry Jeudy, perhaps, if you think the Browns' offense will get better. I didn't really talk about the Browns' offense because I think I literally forgot in that segment, which is probably about par for the... Oh, look at those villagers making love. It's probably actually, I think that the Browns' offense being ignored in that situation. Oh, they're mad about something back there. I think they don't have enough beds. Maybe I'll put down this bed and they'll feel better. Now you can make a baby. And the baby has a new bed. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't talk about... I'll just say it really quick. Like, Browns' offense looked bad. Deshaun Watson looks bad. Jerome Ford has, boring value maybe. Amari Cooper probably won't be as bad as he was this game, but he may not be amazing. This may be the season where he's like a wide receiver 3. I hate to say it, but it's possible. And he missed an easy catch, so not that is everything, but man, that wasn't ideal either. And I don't know. So Jerry Jeudy, if you want a waiver player, but I'm not a fan. Take a Colts upside wide receiver if you want to. I don't know which one. Do your own research because I really don't know. Darnell Mooney, if Kirk Cousins gets better, he is a decently skilled player and he could be a valuable wide receiver 2 on that team, but I just don't. I want to wait and see that Falcons team get better in the passing game before I do that. Moving on to tight end, it's super obvious that Isaiah Likely is a smash pickup. You should have gotten him for free before the week if you were smart, but you didn't. If you're like me, you just wasn't quite compelling enough for you. If you drafted Mark Andrews, you should have drafted him, but you didn't because you're greedy or short-sighted. But it's too late now. You just have to deal with it and use your waiver priority on them. I think Colby Parkinson, Juwan Johnson of the Saints, especially if Moreau is out for a game. I guess he has an injury. So if Moreau misses time, Juwan Johnson especially would probably be my second or third choice there along with Parkinson. And Taysom Hill, if he's tight end eligible in your format and he's out there, he seems like he has a role and might be worth it. And Tucker Kraft is the guy to stash, I guess. Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft are the Packers tight ends. And Musgrave started the season with the expectation that he was going to be the guy to have. And Tucker Kraft, I got more snaps and outplayed him in this game. Jordan Love's going to miss a few games, but when he comes back, Tucker Kraft may have some real value. Just because of his role, you might be able to start him in a pinch the next couple weeks, but I don't think that's ideal. Point is, he's a stash. If I go any deeper, I'm just naming players that I would never pick up probably anyway, so just do your own research if you're really desperate and those guys don't float your boat. Quarterback, Justin Herbert week 2, just because they may need him to throw. I said that wrong. Justin Herbert week 2 because he has an easy matchup, but he may not actually have to throw much because of that. Mayfield seems like a good waiver QB, maybe above the others. Geno Smith, that offense did not look good enough for me to feel good about Geno Smith as my streaming or temporary or permanent QB even. Justin Fields could be a good streamer or a pickup for longer term because he has that running upside. Derek Carr, Geno, Fields, and Carr all have rough week 2 matchups, if I recall, so I don't love any of those guys as a streamer, but they may have some longer-term hold value. And so, if you need a streamer and you want to go for somebody who's going to have some value, people put Darnold in there. I'm going to wait and see, even though I love the Vikings. I'm still waiting to see just how good Darnold can be as a passer and for fantasy. Moving on to the most important offensive position that you can possibly have. No, I'm just kidding. The kickers. This is the first week of the season is usually always a good week to reassess your kicker situation. I like to try to draft really smart kickers, or like draft smart when it comes to kickers, but you can't always do that. So week 1 is a great time to reassess and pick a good kicker for your team for the rest of the season or for just streaming. There's a bunch of options out there. I mentioned in the earlier segments, dudes like Boswell, Chris Boswell, Cameron Dicker. I think those are a couple situations, Blake Groupie, where the offense is the kind of offense that's not going to get touchdowns all the time, but may have a lot of opportunities for kickers. There's also just good offenses. Jake Bates is a kicker for a just good offense that's out there. Kairos Santos is the Bears kicker, and I don't necessarily know that they're going to be a good offense, but they might be exactly the kind of team that creates a lot of opportunity for their kickers also. Joshua Carty with a K is the kicker for the Rams, and he's a rookie, along with Will Reichard for the Vikings, who are rookie kickers who may just have a decent role. Like they may just have a good amount of opportunities to kick. I guess the Rams are probably going to be a more high-powered offense, but the Vikings, who are probably more of that, like, we'll get you field goals because we can't get touchdowns kind of team. But those guys are all guys I would consider. I was going to say Zerline, but Zerline burned me one too many times last night on Monday. So no more Zerline for me. Defense is also, well, in general, you know, a lot of people swear by streaming defenses, and I truly believe you can do great streaming defenses. I also truly believe if you're playing in 10-team leagues, and to a lesser extent even 12-team leagues, there are multiple good defenses probably on your waivers at any given time that you can pick up to hold. Like, for just to give you an example, some 10-team leagues I'm in, defenses like the Eagles, even the Chiefs defense, are all over the waiver wire, or all over the, you know, they're not on teams because teams aren't holding multiple defenses, and these are defenses that had maybe a rough matchup week 1, so people didn't pick them up, but that have value longer term. So I'll just say the Eagles are out there. I like them longer term, and for this week for sure. If the Chargers are out there, that's my number 1 stream of the week because they got the Panthers this week, and they looked like a legit decent defense in their first game against the Raiders, who are also not the best, you know, team, but the Raiders offense looked functional, and the Chargers still had a good game against them. On the off chance they're available, Pittsburgh, they got Denver this week, and they're a defense that, because the offense was, people were kind of down on the offense and still are, rightfully so, people didn't, you know, prioritize that defense. But I think their defense showed that they're a truly good defense that will win games. And against a team like Denver with Bo Nix, that's a smash start, and also probably a hold. But if they're out there, that might be my top priority out of all these. If the Chiefs defense is out there, that's good for a hold and probably okay for this week too. The Seahawks, if they're out there, they got the Pats this week. And unlike the first Patriots matchup, this seems like it's an actually good, powerful defense that's going to actually potentially have a chance to get more fantasy points against the Patriots than the Bengals did this past week. The Broncos, if they're out there, they got Pittsburgh, so they're on the flip side of a matchup with a bad, or at least a somewhat bad offense in Pittsburgh. And man, the Broncos defense is also one of those defenses that just seems like they're always legit, no matter who the coach is. They just continue to be a decent defense. I like Houston, or I think Houston in general is a good team. I drafted Houston as the defense to play week 1, and I didn't love the outcome, obviously. They might work out this week if Chicago is still really hapless on offense like they were the first week. Jacksonville versus Cleveland seems not bad. Jacksonville seemed like they had some juice as a defense week 1. And Cleveland itself as a defense, if someone drops them or if they're out there, they have the Jags this week, which isn't perfect as a matchup, but isn't necessarily a terrible matchup either. Then they get the Giants, the Raiders, and the Commanders. So the Browns' early season schedule is pretty nice. Just saying, if they're out there, even if their offense sucks, they're still relatively elite as a defensive unit. And the Rams could be okay this week and could be good in general. So that's a whole bunch of defenses for you to consider. At least one of those is probably out there. If you're not happy with your defense, consider streaming, consider holding a team like the Chiefs, or even maybe the Browns for a few weeks, or the Eagles, or whoever else, you know, you think is worth holding, the Steelers. And, you know, but don't be afraid to stream. And one of the other things about shallow leagues is that you don't always have to worry that everyone else is savvy about defenses. You know, some teams will just pick one and have them all season. So you got the Cowboys and the 49ers and the Jets defense. All those defenses are just going to sit there on teams all season. So, you know, you might not have a lot of competition for defenses, but, you know, you may have one or two other savvy league mates who are also streaming. but watch for what defenses they drop. I like to keep one eye on holding a defense and one eye on streaming every week and kind of meet in the middle. Although I tend to be a little more of a holder of defenses, and sometimes I think that comes back to bite me. But I also kind of seem to just always goof up when it comes to streaming defenses, and there's like 2 or 3 defenses who seem to have great matchups, and I pick the wrong one and they get like 3 points and the other defense gets like 25 points. So I'm not the guy to trust when it comes to like 1 week streamers. Although this week, man, the Chargers feel like a smash, and the Seahawks feel really good as a 1 week streamer even. So you never know. Just do your thing. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I went through all this stuff. We're finally at the end. I hope you enjoyed. In the future, we're going to do 2 episodes a week, so we're going to break this up a little. The first episode is going to cover a review of the Thursday night game and some start and sit suggestions going across all the teams for the Sunday games and the Monday games. The second episode is going to do something similar to what we did here today with all the games that I watched, although it's only going to be 4 or 5 games max. It's not going to be 10 like it was today. And then, short blurbs about all the games I didn't watch and the narratives there. And then we're going to end with a segment about the waivers, just like this. So, again, thank you so much for checking this out and for, helping me explore this concept. If you have any feedback about what I could do better, if you have thoughts about what takes I have that are wrong or are dead right even, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this and whether you are excited, for this upcoming season, and whether you think there's anything I can do to make this more valuable to you as a fantasy football player who's maybe tuning in just to learn a little bit about what happened because you're not watching the games, or you're watching the games but you're not reading all the narratives about all the different teams. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the near future, hopefully, for the Friday episode of the Thursday night game, which is going to be the Bills and the Dolphins this week. That should be also a good game for fantasy implications, although the short week often leads to slightly more lethargic or more conservative offenses. So it may not be a powerhouse, high-scoring game that we all want it to be, but, it's early in the season, so anything can happen. I'm excited for it. I hope you're excited for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye. But yeah, I gotta go to sleep. Go inside. Get out of bed. I'm going to bed. Nice.